Hello everyone. This is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto Uzumaki held the Yondaime Hokage within him and changed destiny with Hinata Hyuga, Part 2. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. It was a clear sunny day in Konoha and everyone was taking advantage of the serene atmosphere. Naruto was walking around the village by himself after Jiraiya gave him the day off to allow his body to recuperate from last week's training. Naruto figured that it was just an excuse for him to go about doing his research for his Ika Ika Paradise series. He thought about going to visit Sandaime, but then he remembered that Sandaime went out on a vacation trip with his grandson Konohamaru, age 6, and won't be back for another 3 days. Tsunade was going to be busy all day at the office, something about diplomats from other villages coming to discuss some trading negotiations. Kakashi was out on an A-rank mission and won't be back for another 2 days, and Shizune was stuck at the hospital with a patient in critical condition. Simply put it, Naruto was down on his luck today. His family was too busy with his or her own things and currently had no time for him. This totally sucks. Big time, Naruto thought. Don't feel dejected, Naruto, Minato said. I'm still around. I know, father, Naruto replied. I just need to find something to do to keep me busy, really. You can always go hang out with your friends from the academy, Minato suggested. I'm sure that they'll be more than happy to hang out with you. True, Naruto replied, but many of them are busy today, and the all-omnipotent Sasuke is still with the I must become stronger than you Naruto complex. Then why not invite those 2 girls to hang out with you, Minato said. If anything, Hinata and Ino would more than likely drop whatever it is they're doing in a heartbeat to hang out with you. And I know their fathers would definitely let them without any argument, since both Hiashi and Inoichi know I'm your father. If I didn't not any better father, I'd say you were trying to play matchmaker here, Naruto replied with a grin on his face. Not that I'm complaining. What girl in Konoha wouldn't want to date the son of great Yondaime Hokage? Naruto heard Minato chuckling in his mind. Don't get full of yourself, my boy, Minato advised. Though I may be revered as one of the greatest shinobis, however, when it came to courting your birth mother, I turned into a total idiot and she'd scold me for my love for ramen. She used to say that I love ramen more than how I loved her. Naruto started laughing on hearing what his father had told him, while bystanders looked at him questionably. Meanwhile, Ino was at her parents' flower shop helping her mother tend to a customer with the bouquet of exotic roses he was ordering. While this was going on, Naruto soon entered the shop and greeted them. Hello everyone, Naruto greeted as Ino and her mother turned to him. Ino smiled, obviously happy to see him. Naruto-kun, what brings you here? My folks are all busy today and I had no one to hang out with, he explained. I was going to ask if you wanted to come and spend the day with me, Ino-chan, but since you're helping out with. Actually, Ino wasn't doing much here anyway, Ino's mother suddenly cut. In fact, she can go and hang out with you now. You sure? Naruto asked quizzically. Positive, Mrs. Yamanaka smiled as she gestured to her daughter to go on her way. Ino flashed her mother a thank you smile before running over Naruto, who turned and exited the shop with her. The customer just shook his head at the scene. Young love, the customer thought with a grin. As Naruto and Ino left the shop, out of nowhere they crashed into Hinata. Seeing whom she collided into, Hinata blushed and apologized. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I should have been paying more attention to. Don't worry about it, Hina-chan, Naruto assured. Wanna hang out with Ino-chan and me today? Blushing redder, Hinata nodded her head. Ino snorted. She was really hoping it was going to be just her and Naruto. She didn't expect Hinata to have shown up out of nowhere so conveniently and bump into them. So what do you girls wanna do today? I don't know, Hinata replied. I was going to go along with whatever you or Ino had in mind. Honestly, I really didn't have much on my mind to do today, Naruto said sheepishly. But I'm sure if we walk around a little we just might think of something. Smooth moves, Prince Charming, Minato remarked in sarcasm. Who asked you? Naruto mentally snorted as he started walking with the 2 girls at his sides. The trio walked together through the crowd as everyone was going about their business. While they were walking, Ino and Hinata were sharing the same thought. I wonder how Naruto looks like underneath that mask. I never seen him ever take it off. Not once, Ino thought. Before she could say anything, Hinata spoke, and Naruto-kun. Yeah, how about I treat you to ramen? Hinata offered with a sense of innocence. I'll get you whatever kind you like. Yeah, Naruto yelled excitedly, let's go. Naruto hurried to Ichiraku with Ino and Hinata almost being dragged along with him. Ino wondered why on earth Hinata would treat Naruto to that stuff although knowing just how much he loves that stuff. That was when a revelation dawned on her as to why Hinata was treating him to ramen. A smile formed on Ino's face. Hinata, that was brilliant. Inner Ino yelled happily, I can't believe how cunning you can be. If Naruto is to eat, he'll definitely have to remove his mask. It's completely simple and perfect. It wasn't long before they reached their destination. The trio sat down together at the bar. Tsuki greeted them. Hello you three, Tsuki greeted, what'll you three have? Oh, Hinata said, it's not for me or Ino. We're treating Naruto-kun. Really? Tsuki replied in somewhat disbelief before turning to Naruto, you're a very lucky kid Naruto. I didn't have that privilege back in my days. Teasingly, you must have made quite an impression on these two ladies if they're treating you and not the other way around. Tsuki Jisen, Naruto retorted with a blush burned on his cheeks, but was only partially seen from above the mask, just make one of my favorites. What are you talking about? They're all your favorites, Tsuki teased again before making Naruto his bowl. Why aren't you two eating? Naruto asked. I'm not hungry really, Hinata replied with the same sense of innocence. Me too, Ino said. Naruto eyed the both of them. The girls were acting like they had nothing to hide. He wondered what it was they were up to. Several minutes later, Ayame, age 15, came in and greeted, Naruto-kun, I'm happy to see you again. The feeling's mutual, Naruto greeted back, and how are you? I'm okay, Ayame said before asking teasingly, who are your girlfriends? Naruto and both Ino and Hinata both blushed heavily on hearing that, although Hinata blushed a shade of red neither Naruto nor Ino could possibly match against. Hinata almost fainted from the comment alone had she not remembered that she'd have fallen off her stool if she did. Ino on the other hand thought she could get used to being called Naruto's girlfriend. To my right is Hyuga Hinata and next to her is Yamanaka Ino. They're my classmates from the academy. Ino and Hinata, Ayame greeted, it's a pleasure to see you too. Naruto is our best and favorite customer here so you both better treat him right. Okay. Ayame winked at the masked blonde. Naruto sweated dropped. It was as though it was an all-for-one teasing day on Naruto, he thought. Soon Tsuki came with Naruto's bowl of beef ramen. Here you go Naruto, Tsuki said as he handed him his bowl and chopsticks. Thanks, Naruto replied happily as he inhaled the steam from the bowl with the chopsticks in his hand. Ino and Hinata looked on at him quietly. Naruto looked at his bowl while feeling two pair of eyes staring right him. Turning to the two girls, he asked, why are you two staring at me? We're not staring, Ino replied, just waiting for you. That's all. Hinata just fiddled with her fingers as though she was nervously waiting for something. He looked at them suspiciously before shrugging. Turning back to his bowl, Naruto moved his hand to his mask. Hinata and Ino held their breaths as they awaited him to remove it. Hey Ino. Hinata. Both girls yelped in surprise as they turned to see Kiba appearing from behind them with Akamaru in his jacket. Shoji, Shino and Shikamaru followed close by as they entered the small diner. What are you two doing here? Kiba asked. Ino replied, what do you think? We're here hanging with Naru. That was when both Ino and Hinata turned to face Naruto, who now had his mask back on his face with a satisfied smile hidden inside the mask. The bowl in front of him was completely empty of all its contents. That was really good, Naruto thanked, thanks for the meal Hina-chan. Although she blushed however, both girls frowned at how Naruto devoured the ramen with such inhuman efficiency while missing the chance to see his face without the mask on. Damn it! Inner Ino yelled with flames behind her, we were so close. Damn you Kiba, you mean you both were here treating Naruto to lunch, Kiba remarked with a tinge of jealousy, you two never treated any of us guys to lunch. How troublesome, Shikamaru stated in boredom. Shoji was busy eating his chips while Shino remained as quiet as ever with his hands in his jacket pockets. Hey, while we're here, Kiba suggested, why don't we all get some ramen? It'll be the girls' treat. Kiba suddenly found himself with his face to the ground with a lump on his head in courtesy of Ino, who was now standing over him with her fist clenched tightly. Akamaru whimpered from underneath Kiba, having taken the full brunt of the fall with his master top of him. Ino turned and grabbed Naruto's hand and dragged him out of the diner. Let's go. Hinata paid for the food before she got up and apologized for Ino's actions and bowed to her friends before following Ino and Naruto, the lavender-haired girl, that her plan ended in failure. Choji and Shino helped Kiba off the floor. That Ino, Shikamaru mumbled, she's so troublesome. Meanwhile, Ino was still holding Naruto's hand as she was taking him to practically nowhere. Exactly where are we going? Naruto asked after a period of silence. Anywhere as long as we don't have to deal with boys looking for free meals at our expense, Ino retorted. Ironic really, since it was Hinata who treated Naruto to lunch with the intent on seeing his face, which Ino figured out. You can let go of my hand now, Ino, Naruto said. I think it's safe to say that we're in the clear now. Realizing that she was still holding Naruto's hand, Ino reluctantly released it, with a small blush on her cheeks. Sorry, Ino said. I forgot myself there for a minute. That's an understatement, Minato commented. Naruto simply agreed but grinned underneath the mask. I know where we can go. Follow me. The two girls nodded their head and followed Naruto to where he was going as he started running through the streets. Hinata and Ino made the effort to keep up with him, but he was moving at a speed much faster than theirs. Naruto-kun, Hinata said, we're not as fast as you. You can at least slow the pace down enough for us to keep up, Ino added. Are you kidding me? Naruto said, this is slow compared to how fast I can really go. Naruto slowed down enough to allow both girls to catch up. When they reached him, however, Naruto grabbed both of their hands and held onto them tightly as he ran faster, with them being made to keep up with his speed. Naruto! Ino yelled, a cry that fell on deaf ears as Naruto simply laughed. In spite of this, Hinata just blushed crimson on the fact that Naruto was actually holding her hand. A while later, Naruto, Ino and Hinata found themselves at one of the training grounds. No one else was there besides them. Both girls were taking in large gasps of air, almost as though they were deprived of oxygen. Come on, Naruto teased, how do you both hope to become great kunoichis if you're complaining about being out of breath already? Well, forgive us for not possessing your stamina, Ino shot back. There's nothing to forgive, Naruto replied. You both will just have to work harder like I do, especially if you both want to maintain those nice figures of yours. That last comment caught Ino and Hinata off guard, as they both blushed and looked away shyly. He thinks I have a nice figure. Hinata and Ino smiled and thought at the same time, does that mean he likes me? Naruto smirked as their reactions. Breaking whatever thoughts they were daydreaming about, Naruto said, hey, who's up for some sparring? The girls broke out their dreams to look at Naruto incredulously. Spar with you, Ino said, when inner Ino suddenly said, this'll be perfect. That way I can yank off Naruto's mask and see how he really looks like underneath it. He must be hiding something if he's always wearing that mask all the time. I accept, Ino replied. And you, Hinata? Naruto offered, you two can double time me if you want. He's making this too easy. Inner Ino shouted happily as though victory would be quick and sure. Are you sure, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked. Naruto replied, trust me, your hits couldn't possibly be anywhere near as hard as Ka-chan's. Oh yeah, Ino shouted, we'll see about that. And with that, Naruto took a fighting stance as the girls did likewise. Hinata activated her Byakugan and assumed the Hyuga fighting stance. Naruto eyed both females cautiously, as they all wondered who was going to begin the spar. Anytime now, Naruto invited. I don't have all day. So you either come at me or. Naruto didn't finish his speech when he suddenly dashed at the girls, who were caught off guard by his actions. He did a palm strike to their chest, sending them flying backwards off the ground momentarily before they landed down on the ground in a thud. I'll come at you, Naruto said with a grin on his covered face. The girls soon got up from off the ground. Ino saw that parts of her clothes and hair now had dirt and bit on grass on them, as did Hinata. You're gonna regret that, Ino declared as she and Hinata readied themselves to attack. Come make me. Girlfriends, Naruto taunted while doing a hand gesture inviting her to come at him. Ino and Hinata charged at Naruto at full throttle, throwing as many punches as they could at him. Naruto simply dodged and evaded every last one of them as though he was taking a walk through the beach. During this process, Ino made several attempts to grab and pull off his mask, but he was too fast for her to make contact. He jumped away from them, but Hinata followed in hot pursuit. Stopping, Naruto charged at Hinata and threw fast punches, kicks and palm strikes at her. Hinata dodged, blocked, ducked and evaded his attacks as they came and she threw punches and kicks of her own. Ino soon came and rejoined Hinata in battling with Naruto. If one was looking carefully you think Naruto was dancing ballet with both girls at the same time seeing how fluid and swift his movements were. Naruto soon started moving faster, making it harder for Ino and Hinata to keep up. Sudden as Ino and Hinata charged as him, he dashed past them at a speed their eyes couldn't see. Seconds later, they found themselves falling to the ground flat on their faces. When they tried to get back up however, to their horror they saw that their legs didn't work anymore. My legs, Ino cried as she tried to push herself off the ground, I can't feel my legs. Hinata was in shock at what just befell them. Did Naruto cripple them? She wondered. It was supposed to be a friendly sparring match. Naruto walked over to them and with his index finger, he hit a certain section on their backs. When that was done, he stood in front of them with a grin on his masked face. Ino-chan, Hina-chan. You two can stand up now, he said. Is that some kind of joke? Ino barked, this is all your fault. We can't move our legs. Really? Naruto said as he moved and grabbed one of their 2 feet, removing their sandals before tickling their feet. Ino and Hinata laughed hysterically as they struggled to break free, senselessly not realizing that they were kicking Naruto with their other free foot. Naruto released them and said, your feet seem fine to me if you both can kick that hard. That was when they realized that they could indeed move their legs after all. Putting their sandals back on, Hinata asked, why was it that we couldn't move our feet for a moment? Pressure point. Naruto answered, I hit one of your pressure points cutting off your brain's sensory to your legs thus momentarily laming you both. After I unlocked it when I hit your backs a second time, were you two able to stand and walk again? And for the record, during our match, I could have done that the entire time. Ino and Hinata were left speechless. Exactly how advanced a fighter and shinobi was Naruto if he was capable of something like this? This only served to induce Ino and Hinata to learn more the blonde braided ponytail shinobi. Well, I had fun. Naruto smiled. Thank you Hina-chan and Ino-chan for showing me a good time. How about I drop you both home? Naruto-kun, Ino said. Yeah, Hinata and I have been meaning to ask you this, what's with that mask you wear all the time? Do you have something to hide or do having some kind of disfiguration you don't want people to see? You two wanna see what's under my mask? Naruto said, if that's the case, all you had to do was just ask. Hinata and Ino looked at him stupefied, as though they were thrown into a loop. That's it. Inner Ino exclaimed, that was all we had to do. You two wanna see underneath this mask? The 2 females nodded eagerly. Alright then. Naruto sighed as he moved his hand to his mask. Ino and Hinata pictured several variations of how Naruto would look like based on their own ideas of what makes a guy look really cute. Upon reaching his mask, Naruto pulled it down to reveal another mask. Ino shouted in disbelief before her and Hinata went into a daze and fell backwards. Naruto chuckled to himself as he went over and picked up both girls, carrying each of them over his shoulders as he walked off with them back to the village. Too bad they didn't ask to see underneath the second mask, Naruto thought with a smile, they'd have seen my face that time. Oh well. An hour later, Naruto was standing on top of the roof of one of the buildings. Both girls were still knocked out. He gently set Hinata and Ino down before picked Ino up again, carrying her bridal style this time as he hurried made his way to her house. After dropping her off to her father Inoichi and explaining what happened, Inoichi took and carried his daughter to her bedroom after giving his goodbyes to Naruto. With that task done, Naruto then hurried back to Hinata. Reaching her, he lifted and carried her bridal style and hurried to the Hyuga compound. 30 minutes later, Ino opened her eyes and found herself back in her bedroom. She sat up and asked aloud, what happened? I don't remember coming back here. A minute later, the door to her room opened. She turned and saw her father entering the room. Ino, you're awake. Inoichi smiled. Naruto carried you back all the way home. He said that you and Hinata wore yourselves out to exhaustion while sparring with him. The boy must have some stamina to be able to go toe on toe with you two girls and then carry you both all the way home after you and Hinata passed out. From what he told me, both you and Hinata made quite a team, giving him a good fight. He said that you girls should spar with him again sometime. Ino knew why she and Hinata passed out and was surprised that Naruto covered for both her and Hinata. She couldn't imagine the embarrassment she'd have experienced were Naruto to tell her father what really happened, although most of what Naruto said was true. For Inoichi, his only regret was that he didn't have his camera with him upon seeing his sleeping daughter being carried home by Naruto. He'd have never let her hear the end of it. Meanwhile, Hinata had already woke in her room, surprise in her expression. She wondered how she got back as she got up and left the room only to see Neji, age 12, making his way toward her room. Hinata-sama, Neji greeted with a cold demeanor. Hinata partially fidgeted, but not like she used to. Neji-Nisan, Hinata replied back. You finally woke up. Neji said, Naruto-sama carried you back here. He did, she asked with a reddened face that held a small smile of joy. He carried me all the way back here. Yes, and he dropped off Ino as well. He explained to Hiyashi-sama that you and Ino were sparring with him until you and Ino wore yourselves out to the point that you both passed out. Hiyashi-sama was most pleased with the details Naruto provided him with about your style of fighting. Hinata was in her own world now. Not only did Naruto carry her all the way home, but he put a good word in with her father. Had Naruto told Hiyashi as to why she really passed out, she could only wonder how her father would have reacted. Still, she knew she gave Naruto a good spar, as she usually tries to do whenever they spar together. I'll be on my way now, Neji said with same demeanor as he turned and walked off, not giving her a second look. Neji couldn't believe how Hinata had improved from the way he remembered her to be. Still, Neji believed that fate can't be changed, and that Hinata, in spite of her evident improvements, won't change at all. Elsewhere, Sasuke was walking through town with Sakura following close by. He sighed to himself that Sakura wouldn't leave him alone for once. As this was going on, they soon saw Naruto walking towards them from the opposite direction. Hey Sakura. Sasuke. Naruto greeted. Hey Naruto. Sakura greeted back. Where are you coming from? Just came from dropping Ino and Hinata off at their homes after spending the day sparring with them, Naruto answered. Those two were relentless. Sasuke snorted. At least those two girls know how to spend their time, rather than wasting it being flirts like some annoying pink-haired fangirl I know of. Sakura made a mental note to get all of the details from Ino about what happened. It was definitely something she had to get the latest info on. Well, I have to be going, Naruto said. Ka-chan and Shizune-ni-chan said they'll be home around this time. See ya. With that, Naruto continued on his way home, leaving Sasuke and Sakura. So Sasuke-kun, Sakura said, you wanna spar with me sometime? No, was all Sasuke said coldly as he started walking off, leaving Sakura behind. Dejected, Sakura's head slumped as she wondered why Sasuke was always so cold towards her. I sometimes wish Sasuke-kun could be more like Naruto, Sakura thought. All the while, two figures with ceremonial bamboo hats wearing dark black robes with red clouds drawn around their robes were standing on the roof looking down at Naruto as he happily made his way back home at the Hokage mansion. So that little blonde kid is the one? Asked the taller shark-faced figure with a large bandaged sword carried on his back. Yes, replied his partner with his fully developed Sharingan activated, looking at Naruto with narrow eyes. He's the one our organization wants us to bring back. But we'll wait a while longer. The shark man simply nodded before they vanished from the roof. A week ago Naruto told his family about his time with Ino and Hinata after they treated him to lunch and sparred with him. Jiraiya was rather amused at the fact that Naruto had two girls who were interested in him and not just as everyday typical fangirls. Tsunade and Shizune weren't surprised at all. Tsunade though teased her son at how he would grow up to become a true ladies' man. Jiraiya, being who he was, told Naruto that he would give him some copies of his rare limited edition Ika Ika Paradise books showing how he could give Hinata and Ino a really good time. This of course earned Jiraiya a free flight into the Hokage monument in courtesy of an enraged mother named Tsunade. Sandaime was also told the story by Naruto after he returned with Konohamaru from their vacation away from Konoha, and in turn Sandaime told Naruto about his fun time away with his grandson. Although Sandaime didn't voice it, he saw it was a chance for Naruto to revive and rebuild the Namikaze clan and re-establish it as one of Konoha's strongest clans once again after he becomes of age to marry. Sandaime grinned inwardly, knowing fully well that if word was to ever get out that Naruto is not only the son of Yondaime Hokage but also the biological son of Yondaime Hokage, Naruto would have to run for hours as armies of girls and possibly older kunoichis would chase after him screaming for him to marry them and allowing them to birth his children. Present day. At the Hokage mansion. Tsunade and Naruto were looking at each other with narrow eyes, awaiting the other make the first strike. Kakashi, Shizune and Tsunade's new pet pig Tun Tun, which she was carrying in her arms, were watching the duo, wondering how this mother and son duel would end. Neither of the two opponents was willing to back down. It's not too late, Ka-chan, Naruto warned, there's still time to back down. Like I'd ever submit to you, Tsunade retorted with unbroken determination, I'm not afraid of you. It's your funeral, Naruto replied, your move. I'll match you. Full house, kid, Tsunade grinned smugly, putting down her cards on the table both her and Naruto were sitting at. Naruto made a sound and proceeded to look at his cards at great length, shuffling them around. Mother and son were going for broke in this game. Well, the impatient Hokage finally said, what do you have? I have a bunch of red guys, a 10, and an ace, Naruto said, putting down his cards. That's good, right? Tsunade stared dumbfounded at the royal flush of hearts. She hadn't gotten one of those in her many years of gambling. For Naruto, this was his form of payback for all the hard hits Tsunade would inflict on him during the times he'd spar and train with her. What? Tsunade shouted, finding it hard to believe that she lost to her son. Again, you cheated. I didn't cheat, Ka-chan, Naruto replied, you are the sucker after all. You simply suck and it's legendary at every casino you drag and take us to. The fact that we're not in the poorhouse or homeless for that matter because of all the loans and debts you've acquired is nothing short of a miracle. Kakashi was futilely stifling a laugh that was threatening to break free. It was amusing how Naruto had the guts to talk to Tsunade like that, knowing fully well that he was risking her wrath. Shizune, however, was torn between being upset that her little brother was gambling, and being pleased that he was so good at it, which was a lot more than what could be said of her sensei, who was presently fuming at yet another loss to her smart-mouthed son. You little brat, how dare you, Tsunade stated in indignation, for that, tomorrow when we spar, I'm going to kick your twice as hard. Naruto grimaced at the anticipation of being bruised up and beaten on a more harsher level. Just give me my money, so that the next we gamble, you'll start off twice as broke. And so it began, mother and son verbally battling it out for supremacy. Shizune shook her head before letting out a sigh. Gambling was a habit that she was hoping Naruto wouldn't pick up on. Sad to say, some of her sensei's bad habits and temper rubbed off on him, and whenever those two gambled against each other, it always ended with them arguing. It amazed Shizune though that Naruto acquired Tsunade's super strength and not her bad streak at gambling. Kakashi was aware of how hard Tsunade could be on Naruto when it came to training and sparring with him. For what it's worth, Kakashi definitely didn't want to switch places with him. 2 weeks later, Naruto and Jiraiya were back together at the training ground. Jiraiya was most pleased with the amazing progress Naruto have been making over the years. His intelligence, fighting style, speed, strength and stamina was currently Sannin level. Naruto though was yet to reach Kage level. Along with everything else he was being trained in by Minato, Jiraiya and Tsunade, but was making progress in doing so in mind and body. And speaking of Tsunade, Naruto winced at the memory of his spar with his mother 2 weeks ago. True to her word, the Hokage inflicted kicks, punches and headbutts on him that were indeed twice as hard during their sparring session. He lost consciousness after the brutal sparring was over. Although Tsunade fully healed him, he'd cringe a bit from just remembering the event. He was amazed that he didn't die from the experience alone. Now I know how Jizun feels whenever he's beaten up by Ka-chan, Naruto thought. Ka-chan is such a sore loser. Okay Naruto, Jiraiya started, today I'm going to teach 2 new jutsus. But first I'm going to talk to you about elemental jutsu. Elemental jutsu. That's right, Jiraiya stated as he looked directly at Naruto. There are 5 elements that form the basis of everything in the world: earth, fire, wind, water, and lightning. The 5 great nations and hidden villages match to these elements. Sunagakur is in Wind Nation, whereas Konohagakure is in the Fire Nation. Naruto responded, nodding his head. Everyone is aligned to a particular element, and whenever they use ninjutsus of their primary element, it's easier to control and is stronger. Primary element? Naruto asked with curiosity. Take for example the Uchiha clan. In the past, their primary element was fire. When they used jutsus that were fire attacks, they were stronger and had easier time controlling those attacks than other elemental attacks they knew of. How do you know they were a fire elemental clan? Naruto asked. We test for elements to learn what element we are. At that, Jiraiya pulled out a thin card from his pocket and handed it to Naruto, who grasped it as he looked at it questionably. What do I do with this? Simply channel chakra into the card and it will show you which element you are, Jiraiya instructed. Nodding, Naruto channeled his chakra into the card, which ripped in two. Interesting. You're a wind elemental just like your father Minato. Seems you're a real chip off the old block, Jiraiya smirked. Leaf nins who are primary wind elementals are very rare. And since that you're a wind elemental, that makes it easier for me to teach you this seal-less jutsu. A seal-less jutsu? Naruto repeated in disbelief. I never heard of such a jutsu. Grinning, Jiraiya focused chakra into his right hand and compressed it into a fist-sized ball. Rasengan, Jiraiya yelled out as he launched the deadly attack at a tree. Upon impact, the tree burst into sawdust and millions of tiny splinters. Naruto's eyes widened upon seeing the devastating power behind such an attack. Wow! Naruto shouted in amazement. That was incredible. It is a powerful attack. It's one of your father's trademark attacks which he created. Naruto's eyes widened again on hearing this revelation. He knew that his familial ancestors were experts in creating and master jutsus, but he never once thought that seal-less was possible. My father created that. Yes, Jiraiya confirmed. It took him 3 years to create and master it. 3 years to create and master, Naruto repeated in disbelief. That's right, and it took him 4 months to teach it to me. I don't know how long it'll take you to master it, but hopefully it won't take as long as it did your father and me. Naruto nodded before Jiraiya continued. I'll explain and demonstrate how the Rasengan is done. After that I'll teach you Shunshin no Jutsu. Shunshin number Jutsu. Yes, Jiraiya said. It's a D-class teleportation jutsu that uses a jutsu marker placed on either the human object or the location the user seeks to go to. Shunshin doesn't emit any signature. The user simply vanishes, and can only travel to one target. Minato, however, created an ever stronger and more advanced jutsu. This being the Hiraishin no Jutsu, which is an S-class jutsu. This jutsu earned your father the name Konoha's Yellow Flash, as you already know. Unlike the Shunshin, Hiraishin uses the tri-tipped kunai and formula seals to allow the user to travel to where the kunai is, however it also permits the user to travel to another kunai of the same type. Hiraishin emits a yellow flash when used. This technique is particularly effective on large numbers of enemies. During his time as Hokage, Minato would simply distribute his special kunais to ally ninjas and tell them to throw them at different targets at the same time, then simply teleport to the locations and finish off his opponents. This attack can literally defeat a whole army almost instantly. Do you know how to perform the Hiraishin? Naruto asked with eagerness to learn that jutsu. That's a trademark jutsu your father never taught me, since Hiraishin consumes a lot of chakra. Shunshin, on the other hand, consumes less chakra than the Hiraishin no jutsu. Naruto nodded with a smirk. He could only imagine the kind of monkey business he could cause after learning the Hiraishin. Naruto was about to say something but suddenly passed out and fell to the ground. Caught off guard by this, Jiraiya ran over to Naruto and checked to see if the boy was alright. He examined him and saw that nothing was thrown or shot at the boy, but that Naruto mysteriously slipped into a state of unconsciousness. In Naruto's subconscious, Naruto was standing before Minato, who was locked behind steel gates like Kyuubi, a piece of paper that had word, seal, inscribed on it in kanji place on the gates. The environment was a surprisingly clean hallway with many pipes that connected gates that locked Minato away. Surprisingly, it didn't look like a sewer like it does with regards to where Kyuubi is sealed. How did I lose consciousness? Overexcitement about learning my trademark jutsus, Minato answered. Didn't know I was that excited, Naruto replied sheepishly while scratching the back of his head. Don't get any ideas, Naruto. Minato spoke sternly. The Hiraishin is a very power jutsu and is not to be used as one of your playthings for any of your mischief. You're no fun, Naruto snorted. For that, Minato decreed, I'll teach you the Hiraishin at my discretion since I'm the only one who knows the secret of how to create those tri-tipped kunais and formula seals needed for that jutsu. Be that as it may, father, Naruto shot back, I'll learn it from you eventually since I'll be absorbing your knowledge away. I'll be a force to be reckoned with throughout the elemental shinobi nations and all other nations everywhere. I'll become the Rokudaime Hokage known as Konoha's Yellow Flash Prankster. Naruto started visualizing himself as a Hokage pulling huge pranks on everyone at lightning speed, much to Minato's displeasure as he banged his head against the bars of his prison a few times in frustration and aggravation. He, entered a new and monstrous voice, that kid will make a mockery out of you yet, Minato Baka. I don't recall inviting you into this conversation, Naruto interjected. Naruto would occasionally hear Kyuubi speak to both him and Minato, mostly to insult, ridicule and get on their nerves. Like I give a damn, Kyuubi retorted, I have no one else to harass but you two idiots. You can thank your idiot father for that. And while we're on the topic Kyuubi, Naruto said, since you're living in my body, you owe me rent. What? I've been giving it a lot of thought for the past few weeks, Naruto continued. My father spoke with me about the limited amount of chakra I possess, even with his own chakra feeding my reserves. And from what I've learned, you're the only tailed mystical beast that's said to have unlimited chakra. So as rent payment, I'll take your chakra. You insolent little mortal, how dare you? You're bound to me through the servitude seal, Kyuubi, like it or not. Either you learn to coexist with my father and me or die alongside us should anything to me. You have a lot of nerves threatening me like this, Kit. You surprise me. Meanwhile, Jiraiya just stood just as he looked at Naruto funny. Naruto's facial expression was changing from happy to annoyance to frustration to anger to triumphant and so on. The Sannin figured that Naruto must be talking or arguing with his tenants, and from the looks of it, Naruto got the upper hand in the end. 6 days later, Naruto was by himself at the training ground he and Jiraiya would normally train at. He was practicing jutsus Jiraiya was teaching him, these jutsus being Rasengan and Shunshin no Jutsu. Yondaime, however, held back from teaching Naruto the Hiraishin no Jutsu until a later time. He didn't feel Naruto was ready for that S-rank jutsu just yet. Thus far, Naruto had problems making the Rasengan and failed multiple times in creating a perfect one. He suffered severe chakra burns as a result of his repeated failures and had to resort to healing his hands before calling it quits until later. His use of the Shunshin no Jutsu had improved better than him creating the Rasengan. However, Naruto was seeking to perfect his Rasengan and the fact that he didn't get it quite right yet angered him. In his frustration, Naruto thrust and punched his right fist into a nearby tree, effectively uprooting and collapsing the tree with some wood chunks spreading over the ground. Take a break, Naruto, Minato advised, you'll burn yourself out from chakra exhaustion. Besides, you still don't know how to control Kyuubi's chakra perfectly either, and if you're not careful, Kyuubi's chakra will send your chakra control straight to hell. I don't see you doing any better in helping me in that department, Naruto retorted. What was that? Minato replied indignantly, if I weren't stuck here inside you, I'd have smacked you across your head for that remark. Having your voice in my head is punishment enough as it is, Naruto countered. Shut up. The both of you, Kyuubi spoke up. My mistake, Naruto thought, Kyuubi's voice in my head is far worse. Impertinent human, Kyuubi roared, I am the great Kyuubi no Yoko, the strongest and most fearsome of the tailed beasts. I'll do well to remember that, fearsome servant, Naruto remarked in mocking sarcasm before hearing Kyuubi roared angrily while thrashing himself against his cage. Damn you, Naruto, and your bastard father for sealing both us into you, cursed Kyuubi. If I had my way, I'd devour both you and your father and feast upon your marrow. Idle talk. Don't waste my time, Naruto stated before cutting off his mental connection with Kyuubi and Minato. Naruto went over to a shaded tree where his backpack was at and sat down underneath it, appreciating the shade it provided. While doing this, he opened his backpack and took out some food Shizune made for him, which was some rice balls and fried fish. After eating his food, he started playing the one of his kunais he bought from Tenten's age 12 folks weapon shop. From what Naruto knew of her, Tenten has a major crush on Neji, the arrogant Hyuga who Naruto believes was born with a sharp ice stake shoved up his. Frankly, Naruto isn't all that fond of Neji, and several times he was tempted to put Neji in the emergency ward in the hospital after seeing how he treats and talks to Hinata. One day he nearly did so after seeing how Neji was verbally demeaning Hinata. Had it not been for Hiyashi's intervention in stopping the fight between Naruto and Neji before it happened, Naruto would have more than likely succeeded in hurting, if not crippling, Neji with brutal efficiency. The Hyuga clan leader assured Naruto that he'd deal with Neji accordingly. Naruto also was aware that Tenten practically idolized his mother Tsunade as one of the greatest kunoichis alive and hopes to one day be like Tsunade. Tenten had occasionally pestered Naruto about putting some good words in for her to Tsunade in hopes of getting into Godaime's good graces so that she might one day decide to teach her something. To Naruto, Tenten's repeated talks about how she'll one day be a great kunoichi like her idol Tsunade was, as Shikamaru would put it, troublesome. Meanwhile, back at Konoha, Ino was in her bedroom looking at herself in the mirror. Ever since Naruto complimented both her and Hinata about how they both have nice figures, Ino has been obsessed with how to keep her body shape up and still be a skilled kunoichi in Naruto's favor. Ino still remembered how Sakura came running to her house a week ago, begging for all of the info about her day spent with him and Hinata after finding out from Naruto that he hanged with them. Since it was her best friend, Ino had no trouble in relating everything that happened and how both her and Hinata attempted to get Naruto to remove his mask and failed. Sakura though squealed when Ino told her how Naruto carried her back home bridal style in his arms after she passed out from that mask stunt he pulled on both her and Hinata. She also added that her father teased her about it and only wished he had his camera at the time when Naruto brought her home. The sight of them together like that was so cute, her father told her. To no surprise, Sakura found the whole idea downright romantic. While this was on her mind, Ino's thoughts then shifted towards Hinata. It was no secret to anyone that the Hyuga heiress has the hugest crush on Naruto. She practically liked him since day one during their early days at the academy. She wondered if Naruto was aware of this and liked her just as much. She shook the thought out of her head, not wanting to think that a girl like Hinata would pose as a challenger for Naruto's affections. Ino wasn't worried about Sakura, who was too into Sasuke. For what it was worth and what she saw for herself over the years and especially during her sparring match with Naruto, Ino felt that Sasuke didn't measure anywhere near Naruto's potentials and capabilities. With that thought in mind, Ino wondered if she measures up to Naruto's expectations as girlfriend material. She knew that Hinata would work towards that goal, especially after seeing the gradual changes in Hinata's character over the years as a result of her association with Naruto. With that realization in mind, Ino told herself that she'd have to improve herself in everything if she was to win Naruto over. Meanwhile, Hinata was walking about through the village in hopes to find Naruto. She wanted to tell him about how her training session with Hanabi went and how both Hanabi and herself have improved over the past few weeks. Kurenai, age 25, who's been like a mother figure to the Hyuga heiress, was happy to see how Hinata have changed from the closed-in, shy girl she used to be. She was even more surprised to see how Hiyashi has changed a bit from how he used to treat Hinata. The rookie Junin wasn't sure how the changes were happening, but needless to say she was happy they were. While Hinata went on her way, two mysterious figures in black robes with red clouds drawn on the robes and ceremonial bamboo hats on their heads walked past her. She felt a cold vibe travel down her back, much to her fright. After a few moments, she turned and saw the two figures were gone, almost as though they were never there. The Hyuga heiress continued on her way to find her crush, however the feeling that she felt from those two left her highly troubled. 30 minutes later, Ino stepped out of her parents' house and started on her way towards Sakura's house. While on her way, her eyes came upon two unknown figures whom she never seen before. Something about them told her that they were bad news. As she followed them briefly, they vanished and went elsewhere. Ino stood there dumbfounded without a clue as they whom those two were. But if anything, she had a bad feeling about them. Pushing that though to the side, Ino saw that following those two mystery men threw her off track from Sakura's house. Seeing this, she turned and started back. While on her way, she soon came across Hinata. Going over to her, Ino decided to greet her friend rival. Hinata. Ino greeted. Hinata looked to her side and saw the Yamanaka girl coming her way. Hi, Ino, Hinata greeted back. Where are you off to? Ino inquired. I was on my way to find Naruto-kun. I've been looking for him all day. All thoughts on heading to Sakura's house vanished on hearing this revelation. Really? Ino asked. I can't say I've seen him myself either, besides seeing two weird-looking guys in black robes of some type. Hinata's head shot on hearing this. Did they happen to have red cloud designs on their robes with ceremonial hats on their heads, with one of them have a really large sword covered in bandages? They did, Ino answered in surprise. How did you know? I saw them earlier also. I thought I was imaging things at first. But it seems that I wasn't seeing how you yourself also saw them. Any idea as to whom they are? Hinata shook her head. After a moment of silence, Hinata said, well, I'm going to see if I can find Naruto-kun. Hold up. Ino interjected. I'll come with you. I'm sure we can find him faster if we work together. Seeing no harm in that, Hinata went along with Ino in search of Naruto. Later, deciding to call it quits for now, Naruto started on his journey back to the village in hopes of getting some pork ramen from Ichiraku's. After 20 minutes while on his way, he soon picked up on two chakra signatures approaching him. Stopping, he turned and saw two figures standing behind him, one with a human face and the taller one with shark-like features carrying a large bandaged sword on his back. Senju Uzumaki Naruto, I presume, said the short figure. Cautiously, Naruto asked, who are you? We'd like for you to come with us, said the shorter figure. Our organization is keenly interested in you. Thanks but no thanks. And besides, my mother told me to never talk to strangers, Naruto replied in sarcasm. You got good jokes, kid, said the shark man, but it would save us the trouble if you'd simply accompany us back. And why should I? Naruto asked. We already made our presence known to two young girls who seemed to hold you in high regards, stated the shorter figure. This set Naruto on full alert, although he maintained a calm outward demeanor. What did you do to them? They're in good health for now, replied the shorter figure. Just then the taller figure stepped to the side towards a large tree. He came back, carrying two people whom Naruto knew all too well. Hina-chan. Ino-chan. Naruto cried out after seeing that both girls were tied up and gagged so they wouldn't scream. Their hands were also tied behind them and their legs were also tied together. The taller figure dropped both captive girls down to their knees. Naruto's eyes narrowed dangerously at the two men. If anything, he didn't take kindly to people threatening his family or friends. What's your name? Naruto asked the leading figure. Removing his hat, the figure allowed Naruto to see his fully developed Sharingan. Uchiha Itachi, age 16. Naruto's eyes widened upon seeing the S-class criminal in front of him. He heard and learned many things about Itachi from Jiraiya and Kakashi, and he was aware of the fact that he was the one who slaughtered the entire Uchiha clan by himself at the age of 13. Itachi became one of the most hated figures in Konoha. Sasuke's detestable older brother, Naruto said with distastefully, the Uchiha prodigy. Itachi remained silent. The second figure moved his hat and also introduced himself. I'm Hoshigaki Kisame. Another S-class criminal wanted for murdering a daimyo and many crimes in other villages and nations. Seeing that their forehead protectors had a gash across them meant they were also missing nins. Naruto though knew that those two men in front of him weren't small-time chumps and he wasn't about to underestimate them. At the same time though, he didn't want to jeopardize Ino and Hinata's safety. It went without say that both Hinata and Ino were afraid now. We simply want you to come back with us without incident, Itachi said with a calm demeanor. Naruto knew this was a bad situation. He had to think of something and fast. Naruto stood in front of the two S-class missing nins, who were holding Ino and Hinata captive, both girls tied up and gagged. If I may ask, Naruto started, does your particular organization have a name of some sort? I'm intrigued that you're calm enough to ask, Itachi stated emotionlessly. In most situations, people would foolhardily rush at the enemy with blind expectations of coming out as the victor. Well, I'm trying not to be anyone's fool, Naruto retorted, but you haven't answered my question. If you must know, Itachi said, Our organization is known as Akatsuki. Akatsuki, Naruto repeated. That's right, Itachi confirmed. We're a secretive organization seeking to gather as much useful resources as we can. And what does that have to do with me? Naruto inquired. Our organization has been looking for a particular creature for some time, and it's believed that you may have some useful information for us. Such high expectations your organization has for an 11-year-old like me, Naruto shot back. We learn to appreciate great things that come in small packages. Kisame spoke for the first time after a period of silence, and we know that there's more to you than you let on. I'm afraid that I don't follow, Naruto said. Akatsuki kept tabs on Konoha for some time now, Kisame explained, especially after the Kyuubi incident. No one knows what became of the Great Fox after its battle with your village's Konoha nins and its defeat to Yondaime. What more can be said then? Naruto said, seeing where they getting at. Kyuubi was defeat and Yondaime paid a high price for it. End of story. That's what's been believed until 3 years ago, Itachi said. Were received reports from our scouts that Kyuubi's presence was felt by this village again 3 years ago, and from what was reported, you Naruto were in the very vicinity where it was believed Kyuubi was possibly said to have been at. Naruto remained silent. Itachi looked at the younger back and continued, it was said by your Sandaime that a powerful genjutsu was used against the people of Konoha. However, I find that story far from the truth. Why is that? Naruto asked. No particular village or nation that I know of has been planning to war with Konoha at that particular time. Plus, I've done some research on summoning contracts with particular beasts, and as far as I know, I have yet to find one that involves summoning foxes. I don't like where this is heading, Minato spoke up after listening to the conversation. I agree, Naruto thought back. In spite of being tied up and unable to talk, Hinata and Ino listened to everything that was being said between Naruto and the two missing nins. What they were hearing from Itachi was shocking. Now that Itachi mentions it, Ino thought considerably. Sandaime never really gave a name of the supposed enemy village or nation that he said used that powerful genjutsu on us to make us believe that Kyuubi came back. If no village or nation was actually planning on attacking us at that time, then why did Sandaime lie and said that to us? All the while, Hinata was considering the same thing. It's strange how I find truth in what Itachi is telling Naruto-kun. But why would our former leader trick us into believing that a genjutsu was used against us by enemy forces? Was he trying to cover up for something he didn't want us to know? These thoughts in mind caused Hinata and Ino to start questioning their trust in Sandaime and in some ways, also in Godime. Where are you getting at? Naruto asked. When we were sent here to find you, Kisame stated, it was because you were in the area where it was believed that Kyuubi was at. We kept an eye on you for several days, but we didn't see anything of interest until 9 days ago when we saw you summon a small orange and white two-tailed fox, though the fox you summoned appeared more playful and non-hostile, and interestingly, we saw that it was able to use its two tails to fly. From this alone, we're sure that you have a summoning contract with foxes, however we're keenly interested in how you managed to attain it. We have reasons to suspect that it was from Kyuubi no Kitsune since no other beast possesses such a contract, Itachi spoke. Ino and Hinata, in spite of the situation, were shocked to hear that Naruto possesses a summoning contract. As far as they know, no genin or student at the academy has a summoning contract of any sort. They could only wonder how Naruto managed to attain one. Shit, Naruto cursed in his mind as he remained calm, though he wasn't at all happy about the situation he found himself in. Let Ino-chan and Hina-chan go, Naruto ordered. They have nothing to do with whatever issues your organization have with me. I'm afraid we can't do that, Itachi said coldly. Evidently these girls have sadly heard too much and therefore they'll be taken with us as well. It didn't take a professor to see where Itachi was going with this. Hinata and Ino were in fear for their lives more so now than before. Damn you both, Naruto replied. Itachi. So kid, Kisame said, make our job easier and be a good boy in complying to come with us. Naruto stayed quiet momentarily. Removing his backpack, he set it down to the ground and opened it before reaching inside it. Fine, I'll come. Kisame smirked at the boy. To identify your bodies at the morgue, Naruto yelled as he pulled 2 kunais from his backpack and thrust them at the 2 missing nins in front of him. The 2 criminals dashed out of the way of the kunais in time as the kunais traveled into a tree and created a massive explosion, causing a dust and smoke screen to result momentarily blinding everyone. Naruto hurriedly ran and freed the two girls, cutting the ropes off of them. Quickly, Naruto told Hinata and Ino after freeing them, "Hurry back to Konoha and tell my mother what's happening." What about you?" Hinata asked worriedly. "I'll do whatever I can to handle Itachi and Kisame," Naruto replied. "That's downright suicide," Ino exclaimed. "You can't possibly expect to do as I say," Naruto interjected with a whole new character neither Hinata nor Ino have ever seen before. "Go back to Konoha and inform my mother or Jisun Sandame about what's happening here. Now go." The look in Naruto's eyes was a look they never seen before. The eyes he had at that moment were the eyes of a man who's fought many battles and seen many deaths. Even his voice sounded a bit different than his normal voice. It sounded like a man with authority, seemingly like a Hokage even, they thought. Having no other choice, Ino and Hinata nodded their heads and speedily ran back to the village. After they were out of sight, Naruto turned his attention back to Itachi and Kisame. "You little brat," Kisame said sourly, "I'll make you suffer for that." Itachi simply dusted himself off, remaining calm and indifferent in spite of his annoyance. "Sorry," Naruto replied, "but I had to get the girls to leave here. With them out of the way, I don't have to worry about holding back." "You sound rather confident in your abilities, Gaki," Kisame retorted toothily and draw his large sword out. "Perhaps it'll be best if I cut off your legs and drag you back with us." "Kisame," Itachi stated, "we're under orders that Naruto is to be brought back with us in one piece." "True," Kisame sound, "but that doesn't mean that I can't have a little fun roughing him up a bit. Besides, our leader never said we had to bring that brat back with us conscious." "Why is your organization so interested in Kyuubi?" Naruto asked. "As far as it goes, Kyuubi is dead. You do possess the fox summoning contract, so it's only logical to believe that you're somehow connected with the nine-tailed fox," Kisame retorted. "You providing information about your connections with Kyuubi and his possible whereabouts will be of great use to us. Even if I did have information, there's no way I'd hand them over to either of you or your other Akatsuki friends," Naruto stated before standing his ground as he going into a fighting stance with his other kunai in his hand. "This is highly unnecessary," Itachi said. "We didn't come here for a fight with you, Naruto, just to bring you back with us. For an Uchiha prodigy, you're surprisingly insane or incredibly stupid to believe that I'd go along with you without incident, as you so nicely put it," Naruto retorted defiantly. "You're small fries, brat," Kisame said as he swung his large sword. "I'll enjoy putting you in your place." Both opponents stared at each other waiting for the other to throw the first strike. "You must be a fool to believe that you'll escape us," Kisame stated. Naruto gave no reply as he dashed forward at the Sharkman. Welcoming the challenge, Kisame charged forward ready to cripple Naruto. Upon reaching each other, Kisame brought his sword down upon the 11-year-old expecting a quick victory. He was surprised though that his sword was stopped from touching Naruto himself as Naruto blocked and started pushing against the bandaged sword with his kunai. "What?" Kisame exclaimed as he struggled to push the blade against Naruto. It was a tug of war between the two fighters as they struggled for supremacy. "There's no way this kid could be this strong," Kisame mentally debated with himself before jumping back away from the boy, who in turn jumped back away from him as well. Reaching into his pocket, Naruto threw a shuriken before doing a series of hand seals and saying, "Shuriken Kage Bushin no Jutsu." The single shuriken multiplied to 100 shurikens heading straight to Itachi and Kisame. The two S-class missing nins easily evaded the attack as they speedily dashed from being hit. The shurikens struck multiple trees, none of them hitting the two intended targets. "The kid knows how to create shuriken Kage Bushins," Itachi thought in surprise, although he didn't facially show it. Kisame landed down by one of the trees to seeing Naruto coming at him. Reaching the Akatsuki nin, Naruto attempted to land a punch on him. However, the punch was thoroughly blocked, and Kisame smacked Naruto hard away from. Naruto skidded a few times across the ground before coming to a full stop. The boy barely had time to retaliate when Kisame came and delivered a swift kick to his side, sending him flying into a nearby tree. "HN," Kisame snorted, "you're all talk but no show." Kisame was surprised, however, when in place of Naruto was a wooden log. "Kawarimi." How the? Kisami's train of thoughts was severely derailed by a fist slamming into his chin, knocking him upwards into the air. He next felt a hard kick to the side of his head, sending him crashing down to the ground with a thud. Itachi stood his ground as the observer, not bothering to get involved in the fight taking place between Naruto and Kisame. Kisame got up from the ground and shouted, "Now where are you, Bakagaki?" Trying to hide, Kisame then felt a strong fist crash into his jaw, sending him flying again. However, Kisame this time managed to maneuver himself to somersault backwards and touchdown on the ground on his feet. He tasted the bit of blood that was in his mouth as he rubbed his jaw. He turned to see Naruto standing there. "What are you?" Kisame said, but then something connected with his guts, sending Kisame flying again. What Kisame hadn't noticed was the jutsu marker Naruto had placed on him when Kisame had hit him earlier when Naruto's punch was blocked. Also, with Minato giving and helping his son form the chakra, Naruto could do the Shunshin no Jutsu effectively, complemented with the Yondaime-like strength to add to the injuries. All the while, Hinata and Ino had reached Konoha and without a second to lose. They ran as fast as they could to reach the Hokage tower in spite of the fact that they were out of breath. They stopped and took a moment to catch their breaths, feeling their lungs ready to explode. Moments later, Kakashi appeared next to the two girls, after putting his favorite hentai novel away. "Hinata, Ino," Kakashi greeted, "where's the fire?" Looking up at the Anbu captain, Hinata spoke, "Nah, Naruto-kun, he's in trouble for pulling another prank again," Kakashi guessed lazily. "I wish," Ino interjected, "he's out on the training ground fighting Itachi and..." Ino didn't get the opportunity to finish her statement when a now serious and fully alert Kakashi cut her off. "Report this to Tsunade-sama immediately while I go and help Naruto." Without wasting another moment, Kakashi sprinted off toward where Naruto and the Akatsuki nins were. The girls soon pulled themselves together and hurriedly made their way to the Hokage tower, although Itachi's words from earlier were still on their minds. As Kakashi was making his way to Naruto as fast as he could, he was hoping that Naruto would be able to hold his ground long enough until he arrives. Back in the forest, "I lost much respect for you, Kisame," Itachi said coldly, looking at both Kasama and Naruto, both of whom were out of breath. Kisame had endured a series of cuts, brute injuries, a few slashes and a busted lip, and his black robe was torn in some places and stained in his own blood, much to his surprise. Although Kisame had incredible physical strength and speed, however, he couldn't believe how Naruto managed to hurt him. Naruto was in better shape, so to speak. However, due to the fact that Kisame eventually found and destroyed the jutsu marker that Naruto cleverly placed on his arm, Naruto sustained several bruises and cuts, and a gash on his left shoulder as a result of Kisame's large shark sword, the Samahata, catching and shaving him the moment he was caught off guard. Presently, the left side of his shoulder was covered in some blood, but surprisingly Naruto looked ready to fight. "Is that all you got?" Naruto mocked. "My Ne-chan fights better than you. And she's a Junin." "Shut up," Kisame spat. "I'll admit that you're more of the problem than I gave you credit for earlier." Grinned toothily, "But for what it's worth, I'm amazed that you've given me a good fight. I haven't had a battle like this for some time now." "I only aim to please," Naruto replied as he held onto his kunai, which was stained in some of Kisame's blood. Itachi looked on at Naruto quietly as he studied him. "This boy reminds me of myself in some ways," Itachi thought. "I myself was an advanced prodigy during my days as a Konoha nin. But this Naruto is in a class of his own if he could do what he did to Kisame at his age already. Even I wasn't this advanced as his age, I'll admit. He's done a lot more in this fight now than what I've seen during my days watching him. I know that he's the son of Yondaime, and without a doubt she must have taught him a thing or two. But Naruto's style of fighting appears more sophisticated than I expected. And the look in Naruto's eyes isn't the eyes of a rookie ninja, but one who possesses a great deal of experience." "Well, Gaki," Kisame said as he readied his Samahata that now had some of the bandages torn off after using it against Naruto, ready for round 2. "This is getting tiring, Kisame," Itachi interjected. "You're losing focus of the mission. We came here to bring back Naruto." "Come on. This is getting fun," Kisame retorted, "and besides I've been holding back on this Gaki." "Be that as it may, but you're underestimating this kid," Itachi warned. "I detect that there's more to him than we originally thought. And by now I'm sure that reinforcements have been dispatched to come here. Isn't that right, Kakashi?" Seconds later, Kakashi appeared from behind on the one of the trees a few feet behind Naruto. Although knowing Kakashi made the scene, however, Naruto didn't dare take his eyes off of Kisame. Took long enough, Naruto said without turning to Kakashi. Sorry for the delay, Kakashi replied, but I see that you managed to handle yourself quite well to my amazement. I had very good teachers, Naruto answered and smirked. Turning to Itachi, Kakashi said, Uchiha Itachi, it's surprising that you of all people would show your face here after what you did those years ago. And Kisame Hoshigaki, an S-class missing nin of Kurigakure, formerly one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist and also known as the mysterious person, monster, of the hidden mist. You're wanted for your crimes in Kurigakure and other nations. Both you and Itachi are wanted criminals in the bingo books. I'm flattered that my reputation precedes me, Kisame said to Kakashi with a grin. Stand down Kisame, Itachi stated flatly. Kisame looked at his partner before he reluctantly complied and lowered his sword. The Sharkman then jumped back over to Itachi and stood next to him at his left. Turning to Itachi, Kakashi spoke cautiously, I'm sure that you're not here to relive old times, Itachi. So what are you here for? Is it Sasuke? Sasuke does not interest me, Itachi replied back with a colder demeanor as he took a few steps forward and stopped. He's too weak to interest me. Kakashi eyed Itachi carefully. I'm here to take Godaime's genius with us, came Itachi's reply. So you're after Naruto, Kakashi acknowledged. What for? Itachi said nothing as his Sharingan eyes changed. What the hell? Naruto thought curiously. Naruto, Kakashi yelled. Don't look into his eyes, Minato warned. But the warnings came too late as Naruto looked straight into the Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto felt himself falling and looked around when he stopped. He was back at the Hokage tower. In front of him was Tsunade, who was sitting behind the desk of the Hokage office with Shizune standing next to her. Ino and Hinata were standing next to them motionlessly. Naruto tried to call them, but none of them moved to acknowledge his presence. Naruto was about to go over to them when found himself being chained securely to a cross. The young boy tried to free himself, however he was unable to break free regardless of how hard he tried. Tsukuyomi. For the next 48 hours, you'll witness as I slaughter these women in front of you, over and over and over again. Itachi's voice came as he appeared behind the 4 females with a katana in his hands. As I'm doing that, you'll suffer a series of brutality. 3 more Itachis appeared and stood in front of the chained Naruto before pulling out brass knuckle gloves and placing them on. Then the killing and beating started, and along with it, Naruto's screams. The pain, Itachi said coldly before stabbing Ino through the back, with his blading coming out of her chest. She coughed blood from her mouth as he pulled his katana out of her. Ino fell dead to the ground of the Hokage office. Stop! Naruto cried in terror. The misery! He now went over and slit Hinata's throat with a swift sweep with his katana before the girl fell to her knees, holding her bleeding slit throat before she totally fell forward and died. Stop it! Naruto cried with tears falling down his face. Above all, Itachi said coldly before decapitating Shizune. Her body fell backwards as her head fell off. Itachi went over and kicked her head away from him and over to Naruto. Please! Naruto begged as he cried. The hate! He went over and gutted Tsunade with the utmost cruelty with her mutilated body, blood and torn organs littering the floor. Naruto screamed in anguish before a gloved fist with brass knuckles collided with his face and silenced him. Just a few of the many things my former clan suffered just before I killed them, Itachi said cruelly. Naruto was suffering through Itachi's Tsukuyomi jutsu. It's been what felt like 6 hours in his mind as the slaughtering of Tsunade, Shizune, Hinata and Ino repeated themselves continuously while the beatings he's been suffering didn't stop, nor did his screams for that matter either. Naruto, Itachi said, now you understand why the clan of Uchiha was feared and reputed to be unmatched. The Sharingan, the bloodline limits true power. I consume a lot of chakra using the Tsukuyomi, but it'll be more than enough to cripple you. Still, you have another 42 hours go. The mental torturing continued without relent and Itachi showed no signs of showing mercy or stopping what he was doing. Another 3 hours of cruelty have already gone by in Naruto's mind. Something had to be done and fast. Naruto! Minato called out. Father! Naruto called out in his mind weakly. Surprisingly and thankfully, Itachi wasn't able to hear this. Listen to me, Minato said, this is all in your mind. None of this is real nor is it actually happening. But it hurts so much. Naruto replied back with a hint of fear in his voice, he's so strong. And the pain feels so real. Naruto, Minato stated, I taught an Uchiha back in my days and I learned a few things about the Sharingan while training Obito. This genjutsu Itachi is using against you with his bloodline limit is an illusion world created in your mind. Itachi is using and manipulating your mind against you. He's making your mind believe that everything you're seeing, experiencing and all that's happening is real. You must break out of this. How can I? Naruto cried with tears running down his face. Itachi is stronger and more experienced than me. I can't beat him. I can't. Naruto, Minato said sternly with the utmost seriousness, that kind of thinking will be your downfall. You worked too hard and came too far now to be taken out by an S-class traitor. You weren't raised and brought up to a quitter and failure the moment things got unexpectedly harder for you to handle. If you seek to surpass me and Tsunade as you declared to everyone, then fight. Fight as hard as you can with all of your will and spirit. Remember all of the training Tsunade, Jiraiya-sensei and I put you through. You have to be strong, Naruto. Not only for yourself but for everyone who'll ever rely and count on you, and the precious people in your life you'll have to protect. Fight and defeat this illusion. I know you can beat him, Naruto. You have to believe that because I believe in you. Now fight. In his mind, Naruto struggled to focus his strength into himself while undergoing the mental abuse from Itachi. After a while Naruto started pulling on the chains that bound him to the cross until they started breaking. What? Itachi said in disbelief. Impossible. There's no way for you to do this. Don't underestimate the power of one's mind, Naruto retorted before completely breaking from his confinement and off from the cross. When that was done, he materialized a katana and speedily killed the 3 Itachis in front of him. The remaining Itachi looked on in disbelief. Shizune, Tsunade, Ino and Hinata vanished, leaving only Naruto and Itachi in the Hokage office. This can't be possible, Itachi said. No one can overpower the Tsukuyomi. It's possible if one's mind is strong enough to. And speaking of one's mind, you're trespassing. Itachi vanished and reappeared behind Naruto before delivering a solid punch to the back of his head. Naruto fell to the ground but not before another Itachi materialized and kicked him hard out through the wind of the Hokage office and down into the streets. The young 11-year-old hit the ground hard after dropping the katana that was previously in his hand. Itachi appeared in front of him with his own katana in his hand. Itachi was about to drive the sword into the boy's head when Naruto rolled to the side avoiding the blade. Picking up his katana, Naruto got back up and took a fighting stance. You wish to do combat? Itachi asked. Only to kill you, Naruto replied. You're a fool to challenge my power. Itachi rushed at Naruto who in turn charged at him. Meeting each other, the two of them engaged in a fierce sword combat. Naruto and Itachi exchanged clashes with their katanas as they struggled to gain dominance over the other. Itachi pulled away and pulled out 3 shurikens from his pocket before throwing them at Naruto. Speedily Naruto deflected the shurikens only to have a kunai pressed against his back with another Itachi holding it up against him. This is pointless, Naruto-kun. Shut up. Naruto just before Itachi rammed the kunai into his back. Naruto screamed in pain from the blade shoved into back before turning and attempting to deliver a kick to Itachi's face. Seeing the attack coming, Itachi dashed away speedily away from Naruto. Falling to his knees, Naruto struggled to grab and pull the kunai from out of his back. Reaching the kunai, Naruto pulled it out with a scream of pain and some blood escaping his mouth. The pain soon disappeared before he rose off the ground. After wiping the blood from off his mouth, he scanned and looked around for Itachi but found him nowhere in sight. Where are you, Itachi-tem? Show your stupid face. Naruto's ears twitched upon hearing something making its way to him fast. Turning, he hurriedly dashed out of the way as shurikens came raining down on him. Some of these shurikens made contact on his body, inflicting additional injuries on him. After dodging the shurikens, he now had to deal with flying kunais being thrown at him from all directions. Like the shurikens, some of the kunais Sukus fully managed to cut and slash him. Damn it! Naruto cursed with pain coursing through his already injured body. Where the hell are all these shurikens and kunais coming from? Naruto-kun, Itachi stated as he reappeared in front of Naruto again with his katana in his hand. This is an illusion world of my creation. I can control all mass and laws of matter in this universe. Here, I am God. You, Naruto cursed as he aimed his katana straight at him. You may have invaded my mind and my body, but no one is God in my mind but me. Now get out of my head. Itachi and Naruto engaged in another sword fight with each other. This time, however, Naruto fought more fiercely and carefully against the former Anbu captain. Itachi was surprised to see Naruto giving him some problems now. However, the situation changed again when another Itachi appeared and slashed and stabbed Naruto from behind. Naruto screamed in pain as another Itachi appeared and stabbed him from the left and another from the right. The young fighter found himself in a most unfavorable situation as the main Itachi stepped forward. You've put up a good resistance against me, Naruto, but your level of power and mine are far too different. With that, Itachi shoved his katana straight into Naruto's stomach, causing the boy to yell out in immense pain. Naruto's head limped down seemingly as though his defeat was imminent. A couple of moments later, however, Naruto remembers his father's words, Itachi is using and manipulating your mind against you. He's making your mind believe that everything you're seeing, experiencing and all that's happening is real. If he can shape and manipulate my mind into whatever he likes, Naruto contemplated, then maybe I can as well. I just have to find some way of tapping into my mind's abilities. Closing his eyes, Naruto focused his thoughts and power on one objective. Itachi looked on at Naruto momentarily with a wondering expression. What are you up to? Itachi asked as he continued looking on at Naruto for the next couple of minutes. Whatever you're planning, it won't work. Itachi was unable to finish his statement when suddenly, Rasengan. Itachi turned in time to be blasted away by a mighty chakra spiral ball. 3 more like the previous spiral ball appeared and blasted away to the other 3 that were at Naruto's sides. The katana embedded into Naruto were pulled away before he fell forward. Before hitting the ground, an arm came and held him up, keeping him on his feet as he gave Naruto time to recuperate. Meanwhile, Itachi rose up from the ground to see from whom the attack come from. His eyes widen upon seeing the attacker who aided Naruto. Yondaime. Uchiha Itachi, Minato said venomously, you're a disgraceful and dishonorable testimony to everything that the shinobis of Konohagakure no Sato stands for. And you made an even worse mistake coming here to torture Naruto. For your crimes, you will suffer my wrath. You died years ago, Yondaime, Itachi stated, there's no way you should be here. Be that as it may, Naruto said, but in my mind, I can bring back whomever I choose. And since I'm very familiar and well versed with Yondaime Hokage's legacy, I have the ability to mentally create the perfect replica of him. In my mind, he's as real and as strong as the original. This shouldn't be possible. How are you able to resist and fight against my Tsukuyomi? Like I'd tell you, Yondaime, let's show this traitor never to underestimate us. Minato nodded as both he and Naruto turned to face him. Before Itachi could do anything, he found himself kneecapped hard to his guts by Minato, who speed dashed at him like the wind, complemented with Naruto delivering a solid blow to the back of his head with his right leg. As Itachi doubled over, Minato grabbed and threw him across the streets of Konoha, before creating another Rasengan and speedily charging at him with it, driving it into his stomach. Itachi gave out a scream of pain as the spiral ball drilled its way through him before exploding on him, blasting him further back away from Minato. As Itachi was sent flying backwards, Naruto performed the Shunshin no Jutsu and teleported some distance behind Itachi, with a tri-pronged kunai in his hand. He threw the specially made kunai Minato gave him towards Itachi in time for a yellow flash to appear with a kunai slashed against Itachi's throat. Those were last things Itachi saw and experienced before being forced fiercely out of Naruto's mind. Back in the real world, Kakashi was standing next to Naruto just before Itachi fell to his knees while holding his head. The Akatsuki nin winced and grimaced from the massive pain his head was in. Naruto was breathing hard as though nearly 10 hours have passed by when merely a second went by in the real world. The effects of the Tsukuyomi were having their effects on him. Itachi, Kisame called out as he went over to his partner. Kisame was surprised to see blood trickling down from Itachi's nose, not in the being a pervert sense in this situation. The injury that Itachi suffered from his mental battle with Naruto proved to be more damaging than expected. From the look on Itachi's face, the 16-year-old Uchiha was not happy at how a seemingly mere 11-year-old not only defeated his Tsukuyomi, but also caused him to bleed his own blood. This Naruto is not an ordinary kid, Itachi voiced lowly, but enough for Kisame to hear. We came ill-prepared to face him, Kisame, that we did. Kakashi was speechless at the turn of events. He was almost certain that Naruto was a goner the moment he fell into Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan. The Anbu captain was amazed that Naruto somehow managed to overpower and defeat it. This Naruto is truly my sensei's son, Kakashi thought to himself with a grin hidden underneath his mask. Naruto fell to his knees and hand before Kakashi hurried to him and held him up, with a kunai pulled out and held in his hand ready to protect Minato's son. Tell me, Itachi, Naruto asked weakly, there's something I want to know. Why did you slaughter your own clan? For what purpose was it? I wanted to see what I was capable of, Itachi replied coldly. It was important for me to know and to advance to higher levels. You ruthlessly murdered and slaughtered your own clan and family for that reason, Naruto asked in disbelief. My former clan held me back from my advancements. I have no regrets. After hearing his answers, Naruto felt more disgusted at the Uchiha in front of him. You're inhuman. You have no conscience. I sense your hatred me of Naruto, Itachi said with a small cruel grin on his face. That's good. Hatred gives us shinobis our power and strength, something my foolish little brother lacks, which makes him so weak. Your hatred must be far stronger if you were able to hurt me this much. In some ways you remind me of myself. Where are you getting at? Naruto asked cautiously. You and I are like in some ways, Naruto, Itachi continued. We both have the uncanny capacity to advance to higher levels and will do what we must to attain it, regardless of the sacrifices to be made, even if it's at personal loss. I made many sacrifices to achieve my goals and I know you will as well. This is the kind of life that shinobis like ourselves live through, Naruto. And as shinobis, we can never show any emotions for the decisions we make or the people we kill, young or old, male or female. Our hatred when strengthened drives us to new peaks and survival against the enemy. Smiled coldly, we have the same blood in our veins, you and I. In time, if you're allowed to live long enough, you'll in turn out like me, bred to be a powerful and effective killer. Kakashi and Minato saw how Itachi was trying to warp and manipulate Naruto. Minato and Kakashi were about to say something to Naruto when, don't spew me such bullshit, Naruto interjected with righteous indignation. The very thought of you comparing us to each other offends me. I was raised and trained to aid and protect those who'll be in need of my help. I was also brought up to help and protect everyone who are precious to me with my life. And I always keep my word to do my utmost to fulfill my promises to my family, friends, teachers and myself. That's my shinobi way. I'm nothing like you. And I'd rather die a horrible death knowing that I lived and died by my shinobi way before I become a vicious monster like you. That can be properly arranged for you, Gaki. Kisame smiled toothily as he pulled out his Samahata. After the Akatsuki is finished with you. Naruto, although weakened, was about to stand back up and fight again when Kakashi held him back. Sit this one out, Naruto, Kakashi advised. I'll take him on. Kisame said. This ought to be fun. Kakashi stood up and lifted his head protector away from his left eye, fully exposing his Sharingan eye. Copy Ninja Kakashi, Kisame said. I've heard many things about your exploits. But that won't stop me from go all out on you. That was when the missing nin felt a cold steel held to the back of his neck. Kisame turned around and saw Kakashi with a kunai to his throat. What the hell? Kisame said upon realizing that the real Kakashi was using Kage Bunshin to protect Naruto the entire time. Kakashi was always known for being very resourceful, Itachi thought, maybe even too resourceful. Kage Bunshin, Yondaime told Naruto, a most resourceful B-rank ninjutsu. However, such a jutsu is regarded as a Junin-level kinjutsu because of the amount of chakra it consumes from the user. If I were to learn and master that jutsu, Naruto retorted, I'm sure that I could put it into some good use. I've been contemplating on that actually, Yondaime agreed, but I'll tell you about it later. Kisame swiftly turned and tried to shave Kakashi, but he dodged it. Kisame quickly lifted his sword and tried to hit him again, but Kakashi quickly pulled out his spare kunai and held a kunai in each hand to block Kisame's Samahata. Kakashi was being overpowered by the sword. I can't believe I'm being overpowered by just the tip of a sword, this guy is strong. The sword was now near Kakashi's shoulder. My big blade, Samahata, said Kisame as he neared Kakashi's shoulder, does not slice. It shaves. Your friend Naruto knows this from experience already. Kakashi dropped to the ground, narrowly escaping from being shaved by the Samahata. He rolled and got up quickly before Kisame could advance on him. After performing some hand seals, Kisame shouted, Suiten, Bakusui Shoha. Water release. Exploding water shockwave. A massive amount of water burst forth from Kisami's mouth. Kakashi dashed out of the way from the hydrokinetic assault. Itachi and Naruto, with the Kakashi clone aiding him, jumped from off the ground as the flood waters continued from Kisami's mouth. This jutsu covered a significant portion of the forest area. Naruto, Itachi, Kisame and Kakashi were it with water. However, this did close to nothing to hinder them since they all already knew how to stand, walk and fight on top of water. In Naruto's class though, none of his friends his age nor his teachers at the academy are aware of this. This jutsu is similar to what Ka-chan told me about my great-granduncle Nadaime, Naruto thought. From what Ka-chan told me, Nadaime was very proud of his superior combat ability, and was especially skillful at water jutsus to the point that he didn't require a source of water to perform the jutsus. This is true, Naruto, Yondaime said. Even though Kisame managed to perform the jutsu you've just witnessed, however, many to this day believe that Nadaime's amazing water jutsus remains unrivaled. Naruto simply nodded his head as he and Itachi watched the fight from separate directions at a distance from each other. While this was going on, Itachi used the provided water to wash off the blood that ran down his face that resulted from his surprise defeat to Naruto. His head though was still hurting and throbbing painfully from the encounter with Naruto. Itachi still found his defeat hard to believe. Meanwhile, the young 11-year-old blonde on the other hand took the opportunity to heal his injuries as quickly as possible, although he was still affected by Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto, Yondaime spoke, I know you're still influenced in some ways by Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan. But remember, you had nightmares of Kyuubi that were far worse than what Itachi had showed you, and you've endured them for over 7 months with the physical pain it gave you when you were 8 years old. In spite of the terrible nightmare experiences, you came out victorious against those horrid dreams and suppressed Kyuubi's influence with the aid of Tsunade, Shizune, Jiraiya Sensei, Sandaime, Kakashi and me. Remember, you have your family and friends to support and give you vigor when needed. Never forget that, my son. Use this as your power, Naruto, to counter the effects of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto soon took steps in heeding his father's advice after he was done healing his injuries. He made a mental note to thank his mother and Shizune later for the intensive medic nin training they gave him. Seeing that Naruto regaining his strength, the Kakashi clone whispered something into Naruto's ears. When that was done, he burst into a puff of smoke and evaporated, leaving Naruto on his own but not defenseless, although Naruto was confused about what the clone told him. Meanwhile, Kisame rushed at Kakashi with his large sword in the attempt to shave off half his body. Kakashi jumped and flipped backwards away from him. The Sharkman missing nin was coming at Kakashi with amazing speed and stamina while Kakashi evaded and blocked the large sword as many times as he could with his kunai. The gray-haired Anbu was already injured and shaved in a few places. However, Kakashi managed to land some injuries of his own against Kisame while using his Sharingan-I to keep up with Kisame as best as his Sharingan-I could get him. Sukoden number Jutsu. Kisame and Kakashi yelled simultaneously after performing the same hand seals. Water release. Water shark missile technique. This jutsu caused a massive amount of the water they were standing on top of to attack the enemy with a powerful water burst in the form of a shark. In this case, Kakashi, using the Sharingan's copy wheel eye, copied and mimicked the attack against Kisami's, thus cancelling out Kisami's assault. Kakashi was stand on the same side as Naruto but only some distance away from him. Itachi was now facing Kakashi and Naruto. I'm impressed that you can use your Sharingan so well even though you are not part of the Uchiha clan, Itachi told Kakashi, but your body is not an Uchiha body, which the eye needs to work best. He's right. I tire easily, said Kakashi in his head while catching his breath. Catching Kakashi off guard, Kisame knocked him in the water before performing some hand seals. Kisame then yelled, Suiten, Goshokuzame. Water release. 5 eating sharks. From within the waters, 5 sharks were created and used to attack Kakashi. When the 5 sharks rammed into Kakashi, he surprising burst into water. What? Kisame said in disbelief. When did he use Kawarimi with Mizubushin? Naruto then sensed a strong force coming their way as a loud noise similar to many birds chirping grew louder by the second. Naruto. Get off the water. Now. Yondaime warned speedily, knowing what the attack was. Nodding, Naruto leapt high from off the waters and up into the trees, and Itachi did likewise, also realizing what attack was fast approaching. Kisame failed to realize why his partner and Naruto jumped away into the trees when Kakashi came flying down to the waters with his left arm stretched out in front of him as he yelled out, Chidori. 1,000 birds. Kisame. Get out of the water, came Itachi's warning. But it was too late for Kisame to react as Kakashi came flying in straight down to the water. What? Was all Kisame said as Kakashi's left fist, which was coursing with a ball of lightning-based chakra, came plunging into the waters, thus effectively electrocuting Kisame. The entire region that was covered in water was now turned into an electrified death pool at that moment as the sharkman screamed out in agonizing pain. Kisame fell face down into the waters with a few bolts momentarily waltzing around his body. Surprisingly, he didn't lose consciousness or his life for that matter. However, he was severely weakened and injured from the surprise attack, and the fact that he already endured some brute injuries from Naruto earlier, complemented with what Kakashi managed to add to it, only served to intensify the severity of the pain Kisame was feeling throughout his body. The Akatsuki nin had some steam coming out from his body. I always enjoy my sushi well sizzled, Kakashi joked weakly while catching his breath. He was currently breathing hard since he used up a great deal of chakra in that attack. However, it'll be some time before I can remove your nauseating baking stench from out of my nose. Yuage, damn you, Kisame cursed weakly, give me a second, and I'll grind you down to fish bait, Yuage. Naruto, while on the tree, remembered what the Kakashi clone whispered to him earlier, soar and reside in the trees upon hearing many birds. Naruto didn't understand what the clone meant at first, but Yondaime did, which was why Naruto wasn't left defenseless. That was Chidori, Naruto thought to himself in amazement. Yes. This jutsu is Kakashi's only original jutsu. He created it around the time he was promoted to Junin when he was 13 years old. The amount of chakra is so great that it becomes visible to the eye. The jutsu actually alters the nature of the user's chakra, effectively converting it into electricity. As a side effect of the conversion process, the large amount of chakra, and the speed at which the user moves, this jutsu makes a loud noise similar to many birds chirping, hence the name Chidori. Once the technique is completed, the user charges forward and stabs their enemy with it. The amount of thrust combined with the large concentration of chakra allows the user to stab through almost anything, as such it is usually fatal to the enemy. This technique is classified as an assassination technique because of the speed at which it is performed, despite the loud noise it produces. That's amazing, Naruto thought. What a unique jutsu Kakashi Nisan invented. This jutsu, however, met my disapproval years ago for several reasons. This caught Naruto's attention and curiosity, really it did. Yondaime continued. After Kakashi was made Junin, my team and I were assigned a sabotage mission to blow up a bridge in order to prevent Iwagakure forces from entering the land of grass where the enemy could easily mount an attack on Konoha. Shortly after the mission started, Kakashi's team encountered an enemy shinobi and his clones. Kakashi saw this as a good time to test his Chidori, but he couldn't find the real enemy amongst the clones, especially since he didn't have the Sharingan eye at the time. After Kakashi's shoulder was slashed by the shinobi in the confusion, I had to rescue Kakashi from the enemy shinobi and sternly forbid Kakashi from using that jutsu again. That's interesting, Naruto retorted. Is there anything else to know about the Chidori? There is, Yondaime replied. This jutsu has a major drawback. The speed at which the attack must be done, combined with the fact that the user must run in a straight line, causes a tunnel vision-like effect for the user. This allows their enemy to easily counter the attack, making it a potentially lethal move for the user. Though this drawback would seem to make using the jutsu fairly pointless, Kakashi is able to avoid this drawback because of the Sharingan eye he later obtained from Obito before his death after saving Kakashi's life from an enemy shinobi after his left eye was damaged from enemy attack. While dying, Rin implanted the eye into Kakashi's damaged left eye socket, as a gift, thus creating copy ninja Kakashi. Kakashi's use of the Chidori was only perfected with the addition of Obito's Sharingan, which takes in every detail regardless of how fast the user is moving. As his first act, Kakashi avenged Obito by killing the enemy ninja with the perfected Chidori. I see, Naruto retorted, is there more? Yondaime continued, another drawback is the large amount of chakra required, which limits its use to a few times a day, and in Kakashi's case, 4 times. Should the user attempt to go beyond their limit, all of their chakra will be drained and their very life force could go along with it, thus killing them. As an additional problem, though not necessarily a weakening one, is the fact that the large amount of chakra can also injure the user's hand if they put too much force into the attack. Naruto took a moment to digest everything his father taught and informed him on about the Chidori and its history. I think I'll stick to practicing the Rasengan, Naruto concluded. Yondaime wanted to tell him more about the Rasengan's history and status but decided to save that for a later and better time. Jumping down from the tree, Itachi went over to his partner as Kakashi fell to his knees and hand. That last attack really did him in. Kakashi realized, he was almost depleted clean of chakra and was barely able to stand back up. Naruto also jumped from the tree he was on and hurried over to Kakashi. Kakashi Nisan, Naruto called out as he ran over to help the weakened and exhausted Anbu captain. Let's depart from here, Itachi suggested, I sense trouble fast approaching us. Let it come then, Kisame retorted as slowly stood back up with a look showing that he was ready to fight again in spite of his many injuries and severely weakened condition. We have to bring back that Naruto brat after all, yes. Not today, Itachi advised, our seeking to bring Naruto back with us is premature. It would be best to wait for a better occasion. If we don't leave now we definitely won't be allowed to escape. Really? Kisame inquired. The leading 3 shinobis among the group approaching us are at levels higher than our own. We'll surely die should we stay here. As if on cue, a large tree was sent flying at Itachi and Kisame from a very large distance like a speeding jet missile. Itachi grabbed Kisame and dashed out of the way, barely evading the surprise attack as the uprooted tree went crashing into the forest and down into the waters, causing a large wave of water to separate the Akatsuki nins and Leaf nins further apart from each other. None of the 4 there needed to be geniuses to know whom it was that threw that fully grown tree with such great force. Godime, Itachi said to himself. Taking Itachi's words seriously and not wanting to argue with his partner any further, Kisame placed his large sword away. Before leaving, Itachi looked over at Naruto and said, You surprise me, Naruto. You're more than we expected and I will admit that we underestimated you. But next time we won't make that same mistake. When I'm strong enough, we will meet again. Until that time, try not to get yourself killed. Itachi and Kisame vanished from the scene, leaving Kakashi and Naruto behind. Bastards, Naruto mumbled mere seconds before Sandaime, in his black shinobi battle gear, Godime in her usual clothes but not with her green robe, Jiraiya and the entire Anbu squad in full battle-ready Anbu Black Ops gear, and Shizune in full Junin gear appeared around Naruto and Kakashi, who now placed his head protector back over his left eye. During this time, the water was speedily sinking into the ground. Nice timing, Naruto remarked in sarcasm. Jiraiya, Tsunade and Sandaime went over to Naruto and Kakashi. Tsunade knelt down to tend to Naruto first. Naru-chan, Tsunade said in a motherly tone, forgetting all Hokage protocols, are you alright? Are you hurt? I'm fine, Naruto grinned, thanks to the medic training you and Shizune Nichan gave me over the years. It helped me a lot. In spite of the situation, Tsunade couldn't help but smile, knowing that not only was her son in good health, but that her and Shizune's training him was truly paying off. Are Hina-chan and Ino-chan all right? Naruto asked with concern. They're fine, Jiraiya replied, we came here as fast as we could after they told us what was going on. Tsunade looked around for the 2 missing nins with a venomous expression showing that she was out for blood, specifically theirs. Where's Itachi and Kisame? They're gone, Kakashi answered. They took off just before you all arrived here. For what it's worth, Naruto and I gave Kisame and Itachi quite a fight, solely Naruto with regards to Itachi actually. We'll expect a full report about this when we return back, Sandaime said. Kakashi simply nodded his head. Shizune tended to Kakashi's injuries and healed him of his cuts and bruises before returning back to the village. Later back at Konoha, Ino and Hinata were instructed to await Tsunade, Jiraiya and Sarutobi's return with Naruto at the Hokage office after they explained what happened earlier. The girls still remembered how they barged into the office while Tsunade and Sandaime were having an important discussion with Shizune, Jiraiya and the two village advisors, Udatane Kaharu and Mitokado Homura, both of whom were also Sandaime's former teammates. Upon barging in unannounced, Tsunade was about to immediately dismiss them for their disrespectful entrance until the girls said that her son was battling Itachi and Kisame of the Akatsuki. That was all that had to be said when a suddenly worried sick Tsunade dashed from her desk and straight at them demanding to know exactly where her son was. Upon hearing their explanation as to where Naruto was, Jiraiya and the two Hokages immediately ran out of the office and gathered the entire Anbu squad along with Shizune. Neither Hinata nor Ino have ever seen Tsunade, Jiraiya and Sarutobi move with such inhuman speed. I hope that Naruto-kun will be alright, Hinata said in a worried voice. Me too, Ino retorted just as worried, but did you see the fiery look in his eyes? It was as if he was an entirely different person. I saw it too, Hinata said. I never saw those kind of eyes before. And his voice was also different. I know that Naruto-kun is a diligent hard worker, but what we saw earlier today was. I know what you mean, Ino nodded in agreement. There's so much about him that we don't know or understand. Before another word was said, the door to the office opened, revealing Naruto, Kakashi, Shizune, Asanin and two Hokages stepping into the office. Naruto's clothes were ragged, but other than that, he was a-okay. Naruto-kun, Hinata and Ino chorused happily as they ran over and hugged him together. Naruto was partly surprised at the show of affections, but he understood their concerns. Women never show me such display of affections for risking my life, Jiraiya pouted with a hint of jealousy with his arms crossed over his chest as Tsunade rolled her eyes and retorted, what you risk your life for isn't something women would want to show affections for. Before Jiraiya could counter that remark, Kaharu and Homura entered the office and closed the door behind them. Naruto, Homura greeted, we're happy to see that you made it out alive from your confrontation with Itachi and Kisame. Kaharu added, but we must say that engaging ninjas like those two missing nins was both reckless and foolish. Naruto, Tsunade scolded, what were you thinking fighting against Itachi and Kisame? I didn't have much of a choice, Naruto replied, didn't Hina-chan and Ino-chan tell you? Itachi and Kisame kidnapped them for the sole intention of getting to me. I was the one they sought to bring back to the Akatsuki. They were about to bring Ino-chan and Hina-chan along as well simply for knowing too much as Itachi put it. I couldn't nor did I want to risk their safety because of the issues the Akatsuki has with me. So I freed and told Ino-chan and Hina-chan to go and find you while I held off the Akatsuki nins long enough till help arrived. Thinking of the well-being of your friends before your own even though you were the prime target, Sandaime mentally noted with a small smile pasted on his face, a self-sacrificing characteristic I truly respect Naruto. That was a very brave risk you took for us Naruto-kun, Ino said with a blush on her cheeks, I don't know how we can thank you enough. I can make some helpful suggestions, Jiraiya offered with a perverted grin, earning him an elbow to the gut by Tsunade. I don't need any rewards, Naruto grinned under his ninja mask while scratching the back of his head, your gratitude is enough. I will admit though that Kisame gave me a hard fight, although I managed to really hurt and rough him up here and there before Kakashi later came to finish the job after my encounter with Itachi. The Tsukuyomi Genjutsu Itachi used on me with his Sharingan nearly did a number on my sanity. Tsukuyomi? Ino asked. Yes, Kakashi stepped in, it's one of the abilities of the Uchiha bloodline limit, the Mangekyo Sharingan. It's a most advanced ability that allows an Uchiha to create an illusionary world within their target's mind. In this illusionary world, the Uchiha can manipulate target's mental senses, making them believe that everything he or she is seeing or happening to them is real while making the target believe that they're spending hours, days or any other given time in that illusionary world when in truth only a second goes by in the real world. Though it's an illusion, the experience the target's body goes through feels real. I experienced that firsthand, Naruto interjected. Itachi placed me in an illusionary world where I was chained and crucified and forced to watch my mother, Shizune Ni-chan, Hina-chan and Ino-chan being gruesomely slaughtered over and over and over again for 48 hours while 3 duplicates of him beat me down without mercy. In my mind, Itachi tortured me, for hours, for pleasure. The bloodlust Tsunade was giving off after hearing this was potent. It was enough to cause everyone in the room to pale and cringe in fear, and in some respects, even Sandaime was fearful of her. The elderly Hokage knew what an enraged protective mother was capable of doing, especially if this mother was Tsunade. She was tempted to run out of the office right now to find Itachi wherever he is and beat his body down until it liquefied. Before that happened though, Naruto continued, however Itachi was only able to make it last for what felt like almost 10 hours when my mind started resisting and fighting against the genjutsu he placed me under. A voice in my head helped me to self-motivate myself into summoning the needed willpower to fight against Itachi and that horrible illusion. In the end, Itachi lost to me and was brutally forced out of my mind. He bled his own blood painfully as a result of his Mangekyo Sharingan being overpowered. Now that I've experienced the Mangekyo Sharingan, I now have method to counter its effects. Everyone in the office was shocked at the story Naruto had just told them. They knew how powerful the Mangekyo Sharingan was, but never did they think that it could be overpowered, and the fact that Naruto was the first to do so amazed everybody there. Naruto then explained how Itachi then tried to verbally manipulate him into believing how the both of them are alike and how he would one day turn out like Itachi. Naruto put in plain words explaining how he expressed to Itachi his complete abhorrence in being likened to him and how he'd rather die a horrible death living up to his shinobi way before turning out like him. He also told them how Itachi even openly admitted that he and Kisame underestimated him, and that he won't be showing himself around here for a while until he's strong enough to fight Naruto again. Needless to say, everyone in the room was once again amazed the story told to them. Just who are you really, Naruto-kun? Ino wondered with fascination and an ever-growing desire to know more about him. I know that there's so much more to you than you let on, and this story only serves to add to it. Naruto-kun, Hinata thought with a blush creeping up on his face, you're a very special person and I truly seek to know and understand you more. Tsunade's killing intent subsided on hearing this revelation. She saw that Itachi's mental attack didn't permanently damage Naruto and that it instead served to make him stronger. The blonde-haired Hokage saw the looks on Ino and Hinata's face as she saw how they were looking at Naruto. She knew that they were falling for the young boy but decided not to voice anything about it for now. That's a most impressive story, Naruto, Homura said. Very few, if any, might have been able to do what you did. You have real strength in both mind and body. And heart, Kaharu added, something that died in Orochimaru a long time ago. It's truly a sad waste. It is, Sandaime said, and we'll have to make sure that the Akatsuki don't succeed in abducting Naruto. A moment later, a thought suddenly popped up into Ino's mind. That reminds me, Ino said, there's something Hinata and I have been meaning to ask you, Naruto-kun, since our ordeal with Itachi and Kisame. And what's that? Naruto inquired. Is it true that you were giving a fox summoning contract by Kyuubi himself 3 years ago and that you know where Kyuubi is? Ino asked. The room fell into a deep silence on hearing that question. Hinata spoke. Those were the very reasons why they came after you and used us as bait. No disrespect, Sandaime-sama, Ino interjected as she turned to Sarutobi, but from what Hinata and I heard from Itachi earlier, I sense a major cover-up that revolves around Naruto-kun. And Hinata and I are certain that all of you here are in on this, otherwise the so-called Akatsuki wouldn't have gone through so much trouble in trying to kidnap Naruto. There was no point in lying, everyone realized. Both girls knew a lot more than they wanted them to ever know. Homura and Kaharu, and the rest of the village council learned about the secret of Kyuubi being sealed into Naruto's right hand by Sandaime and Tsunade a month after the incident of Kyuubi's reawakening. It was only after being thoroughly explained to about the circumstances between Kyuubi and Yondaime's connections with Naruto with regard to the servitude seal did the council argue no further with Sandaime and not view Naruto as a possible threat to the village's safety, especially since Naruto exhibited no dangerous, animalistic or threatening signs of Kyuubi's characteristics since the fox's imprisonment. It took a while for the clan leaders, village elders and advisors to get used to the fact that both Yondaime and Kyuubi were both sealed away inside Naruto, but in time they gradually looked at Naruto the same way they used to in the past. Sandaime sighed, knowing that he along with everyone else owed Ino and Hinata a most lengthy explanation. Sandaime looked at Naruto, who nodded his head to him. You girls may want to take a seat, Sandaime suggested. You're in for a long story. Doing as suggested, Hinata and Ino grabbed the available seat in the office and sat down as Naruto and the others stood in front of them. Sandaime then said seriously, What you're about to hear is a major SS class secret and can never be revealed to anyone without my, Tsunade, or Naruto's permission especially. Hyuga Hinata, Yamanaka Ino, you both must swear an oath of secrecy promising to never divulge what you're about to hear. Do you both swear the oath of secrecy? Seeing the seriousness of the situation, both girls nodded their head, yes. That's good to hear, Sandaime said. Now tell us, how much do you both know about the son and surviving heir of Namikaze Minato, Yondaime Hokage? Hinata and Ino blinked at this in confusion. Surviving heir? Hinata questioned in surprise. That's not possible, Ino shot back. According to the history books, Yondaime and his entire family died in Kyuubi's attack. His family was the last of the clan that was formerly one of Konoha's three strongest clan, the Namikaze clan. That clan has been completely wiped out years ago without a survivor. That's not entirely true, Tsunade interjected. Yondaime's son survived that attack and has been living here in this very village ever since. What? Ino said in disbelief. Yondaime's son is really alive, Hinata asked in surprise. He is, Naruto said, causing both girls to look at him. He's here, in this building. In fact, he's in this very room. Hinata and Ino looked around expecting a new person to enter and stepped forward. But nothing happened until, Hina-chan, Ino-chan, Naruto said softly, capturing their attention. I am Senju Uzumaki Naruto, son and sole heir of Senju Tsunade, Godime Hokage. However, both girls looked straight at him as he slowly removed his ninja mask, allowing them for the first time in all the years he knew them to finally see his full face. My birth name is Namikaze Naruto, the son and sole heir of Namikaze Minato, Yondaime Hokage, Naruto revealed, and I'm also the sole survivor of the Namikaze clan. The girl's eyes widened like dish plates on hearing this earth-shattering revelation. Upon studying his eye and facial features, they saw the undeniable resemblances he had with Minato since they saw many pictures of him in their history books. It was so unreal. Standing before them was Yondaime's very one son and surviving legacy, Naruto, the boy whom they attend school, hang out, became friends with and grew very affectionate of. Hinata and Ino did the only thing girls do under these indescribable events. They fell forward off their seats and fainted. A while later, Ino and Hinata were started to stir and gradually opened their eyes. They found themselves lying down on futons with wet wash rags folded and placed over their heads. Tsunade, Sandaime, and the others entered the room 6 minutes. Both Hinata and Ino woke up. About time you two woke up, Naruto said with his ninja still off his face and hanging around his neck. I was afraid that my revealing who my father is caused the both of you to fall into a self-induced coma. Both girls were silent. They wanted to say something to him but didn't know the right words to say. So many thoughts and questions were going through their minds in regards to Yondaime, the Namikaze clan, and Tsunade's connections to all of this. Hinata was the first to break the silence. Naruto-kun, your father was Yondaime. Yes, Naruto assured. But, Ino started while trying to piece everything together. Your mother is Tsunade-sama and Yondaime was married to Kushina-sama. Are you saying that your father had Tsunade-sama as a secret wife who later gave birth to you? Tsunade and Naruto sweat dropped at this and the fact that Sandaime, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Shizune, Kaharu and Homura were chuckling at what they heard did little to help the situation. Regaining his composure, Sandaime stepped forward and said, it'll be best if I explain everything from the beginning. This story also involves both of your fathers and the Kyuubi incident 11 years ago in more ways than you know. Hearing that last part made Hinata and Ino realize they were going to learn a lot more than they were bargaining for. Itachi was sitting on the ground on top of a mountain while the still heavily battered and weakened Kisame was recuperating from his battle with Kakashi and Naruto. Both Akatsuki nins had expected the mission to be somewhat less troubling since they were dealing with an 11-year-old boy who was neither genin or chunin, and possessed no biju, or so they and the rest of the Akatsuki nins think. Neither Itachi nor Kisame expected Naruto to cause them so much trouble with Kakashi to later add to the mix. Itachi said very little after both he and his partner escaped the wraths of Naruto's mother, the Toad Sannin and the rest who follow after them. It interested Itachi to no end that an 11-year-old kid who wasn't of Uchiha bloodline descent managed to overpower and defeat his Mangekyo Sharingan. In the beginning, Itachi believed for a time that the Mangekyo Sharingan could only be defeated by another Uchiha possessing the Mangekyo Sharingan. The fact that Naruto managed to do it without having the Uchiha bloodline limit amazed him in spite of the fact that his head started hurting from just thinking about it, literally. Damn, Itachi muttered under his breath, acknowledging that he still hasn't recovered from his unexpected defeat to Naruto, who hasn't even laid a finger on him and yet managed to inflict such an injury to him. I underestimated this Naruto, Itachi contemplated. I should have observed and studied him more. Kisame walked over to his partner and saw that he was in deep thought. After a couple of minutes, Kisame spoke, that Naruto brat is quite a character. If he was to become anything like you, he'd have made quite a member of the Akatsuki. Perhaps, Itachi said, but from the looks in Naruto's eyes, we both know that's not going to happen. Kisame. Naruto is not what he presents himself to be, Itachi stated, judging from the way he strategically fought us, he's far beyond Genin or even Junin level. He's possibly at an elite Junin or Anbu level. His mother is Tsunade after all, and I'm sure she's trained him all his life. Raised and trained by the slug Sannin, Kisame said, that explains the boy's inhuman strength. I felt every blow he gave me and surprisingly they were getting harder. From the way Naruto fought you, Itachi explained, it's clear that he might have been trained by more than one person other than his Chunin sensei at the academy, perhaps by another Junin, Anbu, or Sannin. Kisame knew that it wasn't Orochimaru, an ex-Akatsuki nin who left their organization some time ago. Although a snake Sannin, however, Kisame was aware that Orochimaru wasn't as strong as Itachi and was in fact afraid of him. Therefore it had to be the other one. Jiraiya, Kisame answered. Itachi simply nodded his head, either him or Kakashi. You may be able to fight Jiraiya almost evenly, but I cannot, Kisame said. You are right, Itachi agreed, though we're almost even. However, if I were to fight him, I would lose. If we both fought him, in the best case scenario we would kill him, but we also would die. Itachi looked up into the sunset. Even if we had more men, the result would be the same. So Naruto is being trained by two Sannins, you believe? Kisame asked. I don't know for sure. But if that's the case, then I don't know for how long Jiraiya might have taught Naruto. However, when I did battle with Naruto in his mind, I acknowledged that Naruto's kenjutsus, sword techniques, are lacking. I was able to mete out some series of injuries and assaults upon the young boy. If I had engaged him in actual kenjutsu, chances of my success over him might have been stronger. Kisame gave a grin of predation. If that's so, I wouldn't mind going at it against that brat again sometime the future. I'd definitely show him a thing or two with my Samahata. Don't get ahead of yourself, Kisame, Itachi warned. Though Naruto may not be too skilled in kenjutsu, however, from what I've seen in both of our battles with him, he has innovative ways of making up for his handicaps. If we underestimate him again, he just might kill us, if not only one of us next time. My mind battle with him showed me that, which was why I lost to him. Kisame remained silent as he massaged one of his still aching injuries. Itachi held his pained head as he cursed under his breath. Even with all of my powers at my command, Itachi contemplated, Naruto possesses more than I do and he's being educated and trained by two Sannins, one of whom taught the Yondaime. That may help to explain how he was able to create that Yondaime figure in his mind and use him to fight me. Jiraiya must have taught Naruto in depth about Yondaime Hokage to make him that realistic in his mind. I'll have to work and train harder if I'm to challenge Naruto again. At the Hyuga compound, Hiyashi was in his study room reading some scrolls, although some of his attention wasn't fully there. Early that afternoon he received word from Yondaime that his daughter and Ino were kidnapped by Uchiha Itachi and Kisame of the Akatsuki. Hiyashi was no fool though. As much as he pushes Hinata and Hanabi to be stronger, however, he knew that Hinata didn't have a surviving chance against Itachi if she engaged him in combat, and he knew Itachi's history in Konoha before he defected, as did everyone else. Hiyashi was surprised when he also informed about how Naruto risked his life to successfully rescue and save his daughter and Ino, although Naruto knew that he was the desired target the entire time and that Hinata and Ino were merely used as bait. If it had been anyone else Naruto's age and most who were older than him who fought against the two Akatsuki nins, they would have surely met their deaths at the hands of Itachi and Kisame. Hiyashi was more intrigued at how Naruto was able to hold his grounds against Kisame and Itachi on his own before Kakashi arrived on the scene. Hiyashi found Naruto's character of keen interest to him. In spite of being the son and container of Yondaime and the adoptive son of Godime, Naruto thinks little of his status and regards his family and friends as higher priority and worth. Not only that, Hiyashi was also aware of how protective Naruto is of Hinata, and how Naruto was on the verge of attacking and seriously hurting Neji one time in her defense. The thought of Yondaime's son, who's considered a born Hokage by Sandaime's standards, being close to Hinata were among the many things Hiyashi has always hoped for and considered, along the fact that Naruto has the responsibility of rebuilding his clan. A moment later, Hiyashi summoned one of the branch members and ordered him to gather all of the Hyuga elders for an unscheduled meeting. Meanwhile, Hinata was lying in her bed, mediating on everything that Sandaime had to both her and Ino. Never in her life did she ever think that her father, as proud and cold he could be at times, would have considered adopting anyone who wasn't of the Hyuga bloodline into the clan and have him or her established as part of the main house as well, and this was 2 months before she was born. She didn't know what to think that moment as she processed the information given to her. She always knew how her father had always hardened and encouraged her to associate and be around Naruto to get to know him, but hearing this shocked her to the core. At the same time though, she couldn't help but smile at her father's then actions and still present interest in Naruto. After hearing everything Sandaime told her, she understood fully why her father wanted her to become close to Naruto, even though she already had a crush on him since day one. Hinata have always liked Naruto, even before knowing that he was the son of Yondaime. It amazed her that Naruto went from being the child of one Hokage to becoming the adoptive son of another Hokage. What added to her ever-growing fondness for Naruto was that he never allowed this to go to his head and start thinking that everyone else was beneath him. He didn't have that spirit of haughtiness like the Uchihas or like most members of her own family, main branch or not. The more she thought about him and everything Sandaime and the others explained to her earlier about Naruto's heritage and characteristics, the more she found herself falling for him. Hinata understood why the true identity of Naruto's father was an SS-class secret. If word was to get out about this prematurely, every enemy Yondaime ever made would have came to end Naruto's life. She did shed a few tears upon thinking about how Naruto's birth mother died and the heavy burden Naruto secretly carries as the container of Kyuubi. His father sacrificed his own existence and his son to save the entire village from Kyuubi's destructive wrath. The thought alone made Hinata cry for Naruto. Then she thought about how Sandaime explained how Naruto continuously saves Konoha and everyone else every day since the day of Naruto's birth in denying Kyuubi its freedom and shouldering the responsibility in keeping that monster at bay. This helped to lighten Hinata's mood as she wiped away her tears. No one outside the council except for Naruto's family, consisting of Tsunade, Shizune, Jiraiya, Sandaime and Kakashi, and closest friends, namely her and Ino, and some of the Anbu are aware of Naruto's darkest secret. At the same time though, Hinata felt happy that Naruto trusts her enough to share this secret without fearing her betraying their confidentiality. Hinata found herself growing more admiration and esteem for Tsunade after learning how she willingly adopted Naruto as her own child and nothing less, raising and teaching Naruto as his own mother. Being the son of a Sannin who's now Godime earned Naruto many fangirls, Hinata knew. Alongside this, Hinata knew that if word was to get out about Naruto being the son of Minato, every girl and kunoichi, older or younger, in Konoha would be after him in order to have their way with him, either publicly, in a dark alley or. Hinata blushed heavily upon realizing the perverted thoughts that were manifesting in her mind about her crush. She tried to block out those thoughts, being thinking of something else. She thought back the times Naruto helped her in her training. Naruto would often help me when I needed practice using my Byakugan, using himself as the test subject. I can recall the number of times I saw through his clothes and checked out his surprisingly well-toned body. I'm doing it again, Hinata silently scolded herself with a blush on her face. Shaking her head, her mind drifted to when Sandaime explained how Naruto carries the responsibility of building the Namikaze clan and re-establishing it as one of Konoha's strongest clan again. When that thought crossed her mind, she thought about how Sasuke and Naruto carry the same responsibility in rebuilding their clans. Aside from Itachi, who willfully slaughtered and deserted his own clan, both Naruto and Sasuke are the last of two powerful clans, making them both invaluable to Konoha. Namikaze Naruto-kun, Hinata daydreamed happily, visualizing herself talking to Naruto in private while wearing a beautifully made kimono with ornamentations fit for a Japanese princess. I, Hinata of the Hyuga clan, offer myself to you in being the one to help you rebuild your clan. It would be my highest honor in becoming your wife and bearing children for you. Her face turned even redder with a large smile on her face as she daydreamed even more about what she fantasizing about when. You look very happy, Nichan, said a young feminine voice. Hinata snapped out of her train of thoughts before shooting and sitting up on her bed as she looked at the door to see Hanabi standing there, looking at her quizzically. What are you so happy about? Hanabi asked. Is about Naruto-sama. Hanabi saw her older sister's cheek glow redder with embarrassment as her head lowered a little. I heard from father that Naruto-sama rescued you from some mighty strong ninjas. He did, Hinata said as she gestured to Hanabi to step inside. Wanna hear about it? Shrugging, Hanabi stepped into her sister's room before Hinata related her encounter with the Akatsuki nins. At the Yamanaka residence, Inoichi was informed by Tsunade about how Ino was kidnapped by 2S level missing nins and rescued and saved by none other than Naruto. Like Hiyashi, Inoichi knew that his daughter was as good as dead if she had tried to fight against Itachi, but he was amazed to hear about Naruto's victory against Itachi. Inoichi was present in the council when Sandaime labeled Naruto as a born Hokage a few hours after Kyuubi and Yondaime were sealed away into Naruto. He saw how Naruto grew up as his own individual with some of Yondaime's attributes manifesting through him. Inoichi and his wife acknowledged that Naruto was destined to do great things for Konoha and many other people, and they wanted their daughter there with Naruto at his side when those things happened. That much was certain. Meanwhile, when Ino found out that her father Inoichi knew all along who Naruto's father was, she herself was left speechless. Like Hiyashi, Ino knew how her father had encouraged and hardened her into forming a bond with Naruto. After meditating on the explanation Sandaime gave her earlier in regards to Naruto's heritage and Tsunade's involvement, and how he's both Yondaime and Godaime's heir, she had so many reasons say, thank you, 1,000 times to her father for persuading her to befriend Naruto from the beginning. She wanted to tell Sakura so badly about Naruto's heritage, however she swore an oath of secrecy and she didn't want to violate that and offend Naruto and Sandaime. She didn't even tell her father that she now knew the secret. While in her room, Ino thought about Naruto a lot. She saw just how little she knew about him. Like Hinata, Ino openly shed some tears upon hearing how Naruto's birth mother died and how Yondaime, as much as it wounded him to do it, used Naruto, his own flesh and blood, as a living sacrifice to seal away Kyuubi and save all of Konoha, stopping the Kyuubi from doing further damage and killing more people. It pained Ino deeply knowing that Naruto carries such a heavy burden without his consent, but was inspired at the fact that Naruto never allowed this to crush his spirit and character. And the fact that Tsunade willingly chose to adopt and raise Naruto as her own son made Ino respect Tsunade a lot more than before. Soon Ino thought about what Sandaime said about Naruto being the last of the Namikaze clan and carries the responsibility of rebuilding his clan and making it stronger than before. Again, she saw how both Naruto and Sasuke were opposites who were alike. Both boys came from two of the three strongest clans in Konoha, both of which are near extinction for different reasons. With the Namikaze clan it was because they had many enemies outside Konoha who sought their destruction, whereas the Uchiha clan was self-destructive, with Itachi as the trigger. Such is the life of the shinobi. Ino sighed as she thought about how both Sasuke and Naruto had to re-establish their clans again. But of course this was to be no easy for both boys, and something of that magnitude would much time and effort. Ino's mind drifted to the thoughts of being the one to help Koichi Uzumaki Naruto, or better yet, the very handsome Namikaze Naruto rebuild his clan. She giggled and blushed heavily on the idea, an idea that she decided in her heart that she was going to fulfill one day. Ino of the Namikaze clan, wife of Namikaze Naruto, sole heir of Yondaime Hokage and Godime Hokage, Ino said to herself with a wide grin, that has a nice ring to it. After a couple of minutes, Ino got up off her bed before running out of her room and out of her parents' house to the Haruno residence. Ino knew she couldn't talk about Naruto's heritage and dark secret with Sakura. However, that didn't mean she couldn't brag about how Naruto fought Itachi and Kisame to rescue and save her and Hinata. Back at the Hyuga manor, Hinata had just finished relating the story to Hanabi, minus the parts about Sandaime explaining Naruto's origins and his fox summoning contract. Hanabi was surprised at the story told to her. Naruto-sama is very brave Nichan, Hanabi said, even though I find him to be weird at times. Why? He's always wearing that stupid ninja mask as if it's part of his face. Doesn't he ever take it off, or is it that he doesn't have a face underneath it? Hanabi asked. He does, Hinata said, laughed. And how do you know? Hanabi asked. Have you ever seen under his mask? I've seen more than what's underneath his mask actually, Hinata thought out loud in an undertone. What's that supposed to mean? Hanabi asked suspiciously. Hinata blushed upon realizing her folly. Nothing. Just gibberish, Hinata laughed nervously. I was just talking nonsense. Whatever, Hanabi said. Naruto-sama is still weird in my opinion. But he and Neji-san don't seem to like each other. I know, Hinata agreed sadly. Every time they look at each other they just wanna tear each other apart. If Neji-san and Naruto-sama got into a fight, Hanabi asked, who would win? Hinata was about to voice her opinion when. What's this about who'd win in a fight between me and Naruto-sama? Both siblings turned to see their older cousin standing by the door with his arms crossed over his chest. Neji-san, Hanabi said. Nisan, Hinata greeted. How long were you there? I heard my name mentioned so I came over, came his reply. So what's this about who would win in a fight between me and Naruto-sama, Hanabi-sama? Does this have anything to do with Naruto rescuing Hinata-sama from Itachi? You know about that? Hinata asked. Everyone in the clan knows about it, Neji answered. Naruto-sama had to save you because you were too weak to defend and hold your grounds against Itachi. It's pitiful that the supposed heiress isn't capable of defending herself against criminals. Fate has deemed you weak, Hinata-sama. Neji walked off from his two cousins and back to his quarters. Normally in the past, Neji's harsh and cold words would have made Hinata question her worth. However, after spending quantities of time with Naruto and Ino, and gaining her father's recognition and approval, Hinata decided not to let her cousin's words get to her. Fate, Hanabi snorted. That's all he ever talks about. Sometimes I wonder if one of the cadet branch members dropped him on his head as a kid. Hanabi, Hinata lightly laughed. Later that evening, Naruto was sitting on top of the Hokage monument. Unsurprisingly, he was standing on top of the side with Yondaime's head. While he was there, he was thinking back to everything that transpired all in one day, from him training in the use of the Rasengan and failing to perfect it, arguing with Minato and Kyuubi, a run-in and battle with Itachi and Kisame of the Akatsuki after the two of them kidnapped Hinata and Ino, to finally Hinata and Ino learning of his familial history and legacy. He was happy that he allowed Sandaime to explain the issues concerning the Namikaze clan and Kyuubi's imprisonment. Sandaime was careful about how he went about explaining to Ino and Hinata the truth about Naruto, Yondaime, Tsunade and Kyuubi. He explained the history of the Namikaze clan and how they were specialized in discovering, creating and mastering sealing jutsus, spirals and creating seal-less attack and defense jutsus. He also explained what led to the Namikaze to near extinction and how Minato was originally the last of his clan and was planning on reconstructing his clan after marrying Uzumaki Kushina. Sarutobi then explained how things took a turn for the worst when Yondaime received word about Kyuubi no Kitsune traveling to Konoha and destroying everything its path as it made its way to the village. Sandaime held back no details from the two girls in explaining the tragic and horrific events in sheer details. Hinata and Ino were in tears upon learning that Kushina died from heavy trauma and distress during Kyuubi's attack and ultimately of childbirth, and how Minato had no other choice but to seal Kyuubi into his own newly born son, turning Naruto into a living sacrifice with the use of a forbidden master jutsu that was meant to take his life in the process. Without actually stating the name of the kinjutsu used in spite of it being a fluke, Sandaime explained that Kyuubi was sealed into Naruto's right hand and that Yondaime's body was completely destroyed after the jutsu was initiated, with all of his chakra absorbed and sealed into Naruto's stomach. Sarutobi was careful not to reveal that Yondaime Hokage himself was sealed into Naruto as well, and that Naruto is gradually absorbing his father's Hokage attributes, knowledge and wisdom. Sandaime explained that as a result of Kyuubi's sealing into Naruto's right hand, he was instantly given a summoning contract with foxes and can summon them when needed. Sandaime then went on to explain how Hyuga Hiyashi volunteered first to adopt Naruto into the main house of the Hyuga clan before explaining how Tsunade came into the picture and became Naruto's new mother and how he's been her only son ever since. What Sandaime left out was the facts that Naruto has been heavily trained and taught by Tsunade, Jiraiya and Yondaime while growing up. The girls figured that Tsunade taught Naruto some stuff, however they weren't aware of just how much. Thinking back to those moments, Naruto remembered the shocked look on Hinata and Ino's faces after Sandaime revealed those revelations. It was also overwhelming for the girls to take in at one time, and he knew that they would never look at him the same way again. After a period of silence that felt like an eternity, both girls went over and hugged Naruto affectionately. Both girls were happy that Naruto trusted them to the point that he was willing to reveal and share his greatest secrets with them and promised never to reveal it without his permission. While standing there, he wondered what the unknown future has in store for him. After several minutes, Naruto said, "I know you're there, so you can come out of hiding." A second later, an aged man in his 60s smoking a pipe stepped out of the shadows and walked over to Naruto. "I figured you'd sense I was here, Naruto," Sarutobi said. Naruto nodded. Thinking about what happened earlier, Sarutobi asked. "I was," Naruto admitted. "I have to admit the girls took it rather well. I was surprised that they didn't turn into crazed fangirls on the spot." Sandaime chuckled at this and said, "That's because they're your friends, Naruto, not shallow girls who sees you only because of the name you carry or because of whose son you are. They see you for you, and I can tell that from the way they look at you, as does your mother. Those girls really like you, Naruto, and I'm sure that they'll be of great benefit to you in the future." "I saved their lives," Naruto joked. "What's there not to like? Tell that to the Akatsuki and your father's enemies from the other villages and nations," Sandaime shot back. "Point taken," Naruto frowned. "Seriously, Naruto," Sandaime stated, "putting all humor and jokes aside, the truth about who you really are will eventually come out into the opening. Once word gets out that you're the living son of Yondaime, you'll be a most, if not solely, loved figure in this village and a most hated representation of Yondaime to outside enemy villages who really hate your father." "You told me this before, Jisun," Naruto retorted, "as did my father, who has yet to teach me all of his jutsus and fighting styles, and the Hiraishin no Jutsu for that matter." "Most likely for your own protection," Sarutobi stated. "Your father was the feared Yellow Flash after all. From what your father told me before you were born, creating and mastering the Hiraishin no Jutsu was no easy task, even for a seal master like him. He didn't go into many details about how he created that jutsu or how long it took, but he told me that he designed and created the Hiraishin no Jutsu in a way that only someone of his bloodline descent could use it. That explains why he never taught it." Jisun, Naruto made known, "the Hiraishin no Jutsu is fundamentally like an artificial bloodline limit then. I don't know much about the Hiraishin no Jutsu, so please go with the flow." "Comparatively," Sandaime agreed, "from what he told me, even if the enemy did acquire the jutsu and the special kunais used with it, that jutsu's complexity in its creation is the reason why it won't work for anyone else. Your father took every precaution he could think of to ensure that the Hiraishin no Jutsu wouldn't fall into the wrong hands and used against us. It's an S-rank self-summoning jutsu that can't be copied or emulated by anyone outside the Namikaze bloodline. I bet the Uchihas weren't happy about that," Naruto joked. Sandaime merely chuckled and continued, "But I'm sure that you'll learn and master your all of father's jutsus in time as you continue growing stronger mentally and physically. You will become the new Yellow Flash of Konohagakure after all." Naruto nodded in understanding. "I'll grow stronger and inherit my father and mother's wills of fire and legacies, and become Hokage someday. It's funny you should say that, since the first nickname you ever gotten from me when you were merely a few hours old was, born Hokage." "It was?" Naruto asked. "I thought my first nickname was, Neo Yondaime Hokage." "That's the second nickname you've gotten. That one from Jiraiya," Sandaime said. "Speaking of Jisun, where is he?" "No doubt doing some research, as he puts it, knowing him." Naruto didn't need to be told more. "Anyway, Naruto," Sandaime said, recapturing his attention, "I came here to talk to you about another matter of utmost importance." "Oh, what would that be?" "The revival of your clan," Sandaime said. "What's more to know?" Naruto asked curiously. "Is there something more that I haven't been told yet? Are you familiar with polygamy?" Sandaime saw the look on Naruto's widened eyes and face as his face reddened a deep shade of crimson that would have shamed Hinata. Although he wasn't a teenager yet, Naruto already had a sharp vocabulary. "Where are you getting at?" Naruto asked carefully. Sarutobi took a puff of his pipe and then elaborated. According to the Clan Restoration Act of Konohagakure no Sato, which was established by the council during the rule of Nadaime-sama, the sole male survivor of a major clan of the village is allowed to be married to multiple wives. This act is only used when an essential and beneficial clan is near extinction and its recovery is of great importance. To put it simply, Naruto, you are within your rights to marry multiple females to revive the Namikaze clan and re-establish it as one of the strongest clans once again. This act also applies to clans with bloodline limits, presently in Sasake's case. But from what I've seen of him, the boy is too bent on revenge against Itachi than focusing on restoring his clan. However, we're not talking about the Uchiha clan right now. We're talking about you marrying a few females who'll help you in reviving your clan. It wasn't hard for the old-aged man to see the expression on Naruto's reddened face as he soaked in everything he was just told. Those girls really like you, Naruto, and I'm sure that they'll be of great benefit to you in the future. Naruto recalled those words about Ino and Hinata spoken not too long ago. Naruto wanted to say something but found himself stuttering with his words. Nothing coming out of his mouth was making any sense. You don't have to worry about marrying any girl right now, Sandaime assured while trying to calm Naruto before explaining more to him. You're not at the age to marry yet anyway. Hiashi though is already aware of this act and both he and the Hyuga elders have agreed to betroth the Hyuga heiress to you in the future. What? Naruto exclaimed with a heavier blush. They're arranging that I marry Hinata in the future. When did this happen? Earlier today. What does my mother thinks about all this? Naruto asked. It was both her and I Hiashi spoke with about the arranged engagement before I came here to see you. Tsunade have been aware of the Clan Restoration Act a long time ago since it was her granduncle that put the act in effect in the first place. Of course, Naruto, Hinata won't be the only female you'll marry in order to revive your clan. When Ero-Jisen hears about this he'll have field day, Naruto said. He'll never let me hear the end of it. Perhaps, Sarutobi said. You can't expect anything less from the self-proclaimed super pervert. But I'm sure he'll know when to be serious about the matter. Seems unlikely, Naruto retorted, but we can always hope. By the way, are Hinata and Ino aware of their arranged engagements to me? Presently Hinata isn't aware of this since it was deemed that she'd be enlightened about this at a later time when she's ready to know. By the way, why did you add Ino into the mix? Aside from Hiashi, I don't recall saying that Ino's father betrothed her to you. Naruto blinked on hearing this. But, you say that both Ino and Hinata really like me and they'll be of great benefit to me in the future. The latter part of that statement could have meant anything, Naruto. What I could have meant is that both girls could prove to be great allies to you during good and hard times. Therefore, judging from your answer, I'm assuming that you were already contemplating on marrying both Hinata and Ino, yes. A now heavily reddened face Naruto found himself more speechless than before. He wanted to say something to Sandaime but nothing came out. He couldn't deny that he senselessly placed himself in the situation he found himself in. Seeing Naruto's predicament, Sarutobi laughed. Don't be so hard on yourself, Naruto. I already knew you like both girls seeing that they're the only two from the academy you've taken a liking to. If anything, Yamanaka Inoichi would be more than happy to betroth his daughter to you before allowing any other guy to step into the picture. Grinned, I should know. I've seen how both he and his wife have been trying to pair both you and Ino together for quite some time now, especially since he's aware that you're the son of Minato. So he wouldn't oppose to Ino being married to me along with Hinata? Naruto asked with a still reddened face. All of the members of the village council are aware of the Clan Restoration Act and what it entails, Naruto. So don't be surprised if other clan members try to offer their daughters to you as wives after you become of age to marry and have children. I don't know if I can look at girls the same way again, Naruto admitted, feeling as though Kakashi and Jiraiya's perverted traits were starting to rub off on him. Sandaime chuckled at Naruto and said, I don't think Hinata and Ino will ever look at you the same way again either. Just promise me that when the time comes you'll be mature about this. This is a serious matter after all. What's there not to be mature about? Naruto retorted. I'm the only Namikaze left and I'd hate to be the one responsible for guaranteeing its extinction. However, I don't like the idea of girls marrying me simply because of what name I carry, whose son I am or what clan I came from. I want such girls to see and marry me for me because of the way they feel for me, just like how I would marry them for who they are and how I feel for them. Sandaime smiled and simply nodded in agreement before taking another puff of his pipe. You're showing maturity and a level-headed mind about this already, Naruto. For the next couple of minutes, both Sarutobi and Naruto quietly looked over at the village with the darkening starlit night skies blanketing village. Hey father, Naruto thought, I have a question. What is it? Yondaime asked. Since you seem to know what goes on in my mind and body, Naruto wondered, does that mean you'll be there to know when I having say? Don't even finish that question, Yondaime replied speedily with a strong sense of disgust. Naruto cringed at the volume of Minato's voice in his head. Yondaime's displeasure and indignation were strongly felt by Naruto as he held his head with his right hand. He 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 he. Ha 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 ha. Kyuubi mocked and laughed maniacally, keeping it all in the family I see. Shut up you sick perverted bastard, Naruto shouted mentally. Sandaime turned and saw Naruto's plight and inquired, is something the matter? Just a sudden headache, came Naruto's reply, I'll be fine. Nothing serious to worry about old man. Sandaime frowned on being called old man again before returning his gaze at the village. Soon the short-lived pain in Naruto's head vanished. Sorry about that, Yondaime apologized, but don't ever ask that question again. And you have yet to answer it anyway, Naruto mentally retorted. The answer is you can control what I see and sense through you. Remember I'm your tenant, and I can't do much unless you permit me or if the situation is rather dire. Believe me Naruto, what you were about to ask is something I certainly do not want to be part of. The seal on your stomach that slightly evolved from the original design after the servitude jutsu was performed allows you to block out and cut me away from anything you don't want me to be aware of. A.N. The seal on Naruto's stomach is the same, except that there are 4 small spiral diamonds at the top, bottom, left and right sides of the seal. PFT. Kyuubi scoffed. I bet before the kid knew this Yondaime, you enjoyed the sight of Tsunade's body and when she used to suckle. Damare yo. Baka Ero Kitsune, Naruto and Yondaime angrily shouted simultaneously. Kyuubi chuckled to himself as he retreated back into the dark depths of his prison. Sighing to himself, Naruto thought, why me?